Welcome, welcome, welcome into TexAgs Live with a little bit of technical difficulties here in the morning. Buchanan, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Nuño.
Looks like you could be going to a meeting or church or just looking like a GQ model. Good morning, man. I'm happy to see you this morning.
Well, I'm good to be here. I would like to say I had something big going on. I do have the Buzz Williams press conference today.
Yep.
But mainly, this was clean.
Looks good, buddy.
You know, it's getting toward the end of the week. It's almost laundry time, so.
I'm going to give you a question.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to give me a number.
Okay, a number.
Confidence meter, 1 through 10, A&M Tennessee this weekend, and then the why.
Yeah, 8.5.
Wow, that's pretty high.
Well, you know, if you look back, A&M has had a lot of success against Tennessee. I think they match up pretty well with Tennessee, and they're at home. And A&M's, been really, really successful at home. And I do think that, and why I'm not a 9, or why I might drop to an 8 or an 8.5, is they did play poorly.
Yeah.
But I also know athletes and competitors, and when you don't perform well, you very often, not always, but very often, come back and redeem yourself. Now, we'll find out if what we saw at Mississippi State was a symptom of something, dubious, coming out in this team, as the games get more important. But I don't think that's the case. I think they had a bad game. You're going to have bad games over the course and over the course of a season, and they typically have bad games in Starkville. But at the same time, they typically play pretty well against Tennessee, especially at home.
All right, you know me well. What do you think my confidence meter's at? If you were to say, David,
like right now?
Today.
Okay, yeah, but it may change in an hour.
Oh, for sure. It will. It may change in this conversation.
I would say right now, I'd say your confidence meter's a 9, and then at tip-off, it's going to be about a 6.
Actually.
And then about halftime, it'll be, depending on whatever, it'll be a 9.
That happens.
It fluctuates.
The truth is, I'm probably at a 7 right now.
7, okay.
7. Now, a 7 to me does not mean that I necessarily don't think we're going to win. I just have some reservations because of the level of team you're about to play, how you just played, and I do take into account that A&M has done well against Tennessee at home. Sure. But if you were to ask me my confidence meter coming off a loss where they looked, was that the worst they've looked since
last year?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Look,
the other games were collapses, right? Texas was a collapse.
Right.
Oregon was a collapse. Central Florida was a collapse.
And then you lost to Tennessee.
Kentucky.
I'm sorry, to Kentucky. They shot well in the second. You had your opportunities. Was Wade playing then?
I don't believe Wade played in that game. Those are part of the 2 games that he missed, the Alabama-Kentucky games.
I thought that they had, up until late, that they might have a shot against Kentucky. I started bailing on the Mississippi State game, even though they were in 6.
Yeah.
I didn't think, or even 4. And when they were at 4, I thought, okay, they might pull this out. But when you go 3 or 4 minutes later and they were down 6, I was thinking, I just don't think it's going to happen. Now, the score, it became a 14-point, quote, blowout because late in the game, really late, Mississippi State hit some threes, and when this issue was already decided, and I wonder if you were playing as hard when But I do think it was their worst performance of the year.
Yeah, because it was more than a half, right? Even when they were leading in the first half, they had that run in the first half where I was like, okay, here we go,
10-0 or something like that.
But then they closed the half so poorly.
They
started the game poorly.
Yep.
So, you put that all together, that was a pretty much top to bottom bad performance.
Well, except for that one stretch you were talking about, when I think they went on a 10-0 run. They kind of maintained, but I don't think they were ever playing well except for that stretch.
They had a nice lead, and then Mississippi State wasn't playing well. And you're like, wait, it's still a close game. And, A&M's not taking advantage of this little...
And that's what happened in Kentucky.
Yeah.
If you remember, Kentucky could not hit a 3. And A&M got the lead but couldn't extend it and get separation. And Kentucky either had the lead at half or was really close, even though they had shot so poorly. And you were looking at that game against Mississippi State, and Mississippi State, it's like 2 of 9 or something like that, maybe worse than that from the 3-point range.
So I tell you my confidence meter is at a 7, but my confidence meter for Wade having a bounce back game is very high.
Well, I think if Wade has a bounce back game, which I agree with you, and has a typical Wade Taylor game, and then there's a great chance that they're going to win.
When we say typical Wade Taylor game, I'm saying this year Wade Taylor, like 15, 16, 17 points kind of game, but efficient.
Half dozen assists.
I don't need, I would love a 25-point game if that means a win, but I'm not even talking about what Wade's done in seasons past. I'm saying this year he's leading the team in a different way, getting more assists. If he can give them 15 to 17 in that range, right, then my confidence meter continues to go up, but I am confident he'll have some type of bounce back.
Well, my first thing when I look at A&M and trying to bounce back, and I agree, Wade playing to Wade standards is key. And maybe this plays into that, but the first thing you got to do is cut that turnover that number you had.
Nonsense.
At least in half. They had 19, keep that to around 9.
Yeah.
I understand they're going to turn the ball over some. Everybody does. But 19, I think Buzz Williams would agree with you that 19 is just unacceptable, and I think it was a aberration.
Yeah.
Let's hope so.
All right, let's do 3 things that we want to see this weekend, Olin.
Well, for me, it's almost always the same because they have the recipe to win. I want to see them offensive rebound effectively, get a lot of them. I want to see them get to the free throw line more than they did the other night and then convert. I want to see them dramatically decrease that turnover.
Yeah,
right? So
I agree with that.
If you do those things, and you can always throw in play their typical defense, but if you do those things, then I think that you have a outstanding chance to win the game.
That's what I want to see. I want to see a duo, okay? And I don't know what the duo has to be. I don't know if it's going to be, but I'd like to see a combination of a guard and a front court player having the kind of games that we're used to. So if that might mean Pharrell Payne having those 12 and 8 games, right? Mm-hmm. That might mean Wade and Pharrell. That might mean Zurich and Henry Coleman. But I want a duo to contribute the way we're used to seeing. They're going to need a third person, don't get me wrong, but just can we get front court play and guard play at the same time?
Yeah, who would you get? I always say that there's always one guy that's the co-star.
Yeah.
Who's that going to be?
The co-star.
It was almost, had they won, it was going to be C.J. Wilcher, but they didn't play much in the second half. But
the co-star, so not the number 3 guy, the number 2 guy, right? Yeah. I'm going to go Pharrell.
I agree.
I'm going to go Pharrell.
I agree. I think I think that's a good matchup with him and what's the guy's name? Meshack or Meshack? Yeah. But I like Pharrell Payne there. Yeah. So absolutely with you.
And this one is a Captain Obvious. Can we limit the scoring droughts?
Yeah.
Almost 14 minutes or 15 minutes. You're not going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, you can't do that. Look, there's probably going to be a 2 or 3, 4 minute droughts because Tennessee's really good on defense too. These teams are actually pretty similar. But if you can, not the extended ones where you wonder if they're going to score again like the other night.
Yeah, so if we can limit that, can we get back to getting to the line? That's a big part of their offense. Let's be honest. That's how they score a lot of their points. So can they get to the line 22 times?
Yeah, I think the number you're looking for, the bottom number, you want at least 20 free throws. You got to get to the line 20 times.
Let me give you some numbers on these players. So obviously they're going to have to limit Chaz Lanier. He's a baller, right? Mm-hmm. Averaging 17.5 points per game. In SEC play, 15. Meshack is averaging only 5.7 points per game.
Zakai
Ziegler's good. 13 and 3.
Yeah, he's an explosive point guard.
7.5 assists.
I think he must be 35. It seems like he's been there forever.
It does feel that way. So, and then who could be the third guy for A&M?
The third guy, I could see it being
Zurich is typically the name I think of.
I could see it being Zurich with his. Here's something I haven't looked up, and I need to. Maybe you got there. How many shots does Tennessee block?
Let's see if that's on here. Offensive stats, defensive stats. Blocks per game, according to this.
I don't think they get a huge volume, but I could be wrong on that.
5.3 per game, if I'm reading this correctly.
Pretty good, actually. Okay.
Yeah.
because I'm looking at somebody. I'm looking for somebody that can get in and score and not get the. Who's number 3 on that list?
Well,
I'll probably still go with Zurich.
And if not Zurich, I'll tell you who's been the most recent number 3, Henry Coleman. Henry Coleman's been real, like he has had really good SEC play. Really good. Pretty steady.
Yeah, but I think this is the strength of A&M's team. When you're looking at that, it could be Henry Coleman. It could be Zurich Phelps.
Could it be Manny?
It could be. He's due.
He is due.
He's due. We've seen what he can do. He's been struggling of late. Anderson Garcia in
a different way. He not necessarily the scoring, but just the little things.
Could be Hayden Hefner.
We saw Solo have his game a couple of games ago.
Yeah. So I think what you really want to see, we always want to see, is just a good balanced productivity, like you had the game before Mississippi State. Arkansas. Just balanced productivity up and down the lineup.
Yep. All right, let's do this. Let's tell the people what show they're listening to.
Well, it's TexAgs Live.
Yeah, it's live. It's not TexAgs Radio anymore.
No, it's TexAgs because we're live.
We're live. Well, and also we're in a new studio, and we kind of rebranded.
Yeah.
The studio's called the Studio.
The studio? You mean the Rollo Insurance Studio?
Yeah, thank you. Making sure you knew. Yeah.
Of course. How could I?
But the entire presentation, not just the hour, the whole thing is brought to you by David Gardner's Jewelers.
Yep, a gem of a guy.
But this hour actually has a sponsor.
The Go Hour.
Because we're together.
We're going. And you're going to work. And so we're going with you.
And it's CC Creations.
CC Creations, not the sound machine, Creations.
Were you a big CC?
No, I really wasn't.
Music Factory?
Is that what it was called?
Yeah, the Miami Sound Machine.
See, I put them together.
Yeah, Gloria Stefan. I can see you being a big fan.
Is she Cuban?
She's part of the smart community.
Okay,
yeah, Circle of Trust right there. And right now, this particular area is the Holistic Planning Cool Zone, where they do a lot of great things.
Yeah, they do a lot of great things. Like they help their clients with investments, if you want to, taxes, day closer to April 15th, and estate planning. And part of that estate planning, if you so choose, could be investing in pro sports.
Yeah, I like to do that. And
like Real Madrid, I heard Mbappe had a hat trick the other day.
Oh, see, there you go.
My niece told me.
Yeah, he had a hat trick.
Thanks, Addison.
We beat Man City. I'm a part of the
Man City. Is that the same as Man U?
No, they're different. They're rivals.
Oh, okay.
Manchester City and Manchester United. They have 2 teams there.
They're like the Giants and the Jets.
Just like that.
Okay.
One of them
the Chargers and the Rams.
But the difference is United used to be really, really good. Just the name you know.
Yeah.
And now City recently has been the really good one. We're still waiting on the Jets.
Yeah. Well, maybe waiting a while.
Yeah. Let's go around the room and say hi to people. If you want to say hi to us, you can do it at 979-693-1150. We'll pick it up on the Puppy's Catering hotline. You can text that number as well. Behind the glass is always a very busy Nick Savage. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
What up?
Oh, nothing much. Just quick note, our friend of the program, Ross Stripling, former Aggie pitcher, he didn't have a contract for this upcoming season, but he was picked up by the Royals yesterday afternoon, so he's good to go for spring training and all that good stuff. Spring training, their first game was yesterday, by the way. At least the Cubs and the Dodgers, played the first spring training game. I think most teams start playing
late February
this weekend. Right? Yeah, so it's crazy that it's already here. But this blackout game this Saturday going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, all those people. It's basically going to turn into a blackout of Olsen Field. Do you think? Because people coming from Reed Arena are going to come over to Bluebell Park, maybe a few extra layers on. And
do you have the times of all the games so I can? I know obviously basketball is 11 a.m. Today they moved up the baseball series to 4 p.m.
Well, tonight's game is moved up to 4 p.m. Tomorrow they're still playing at 2.
Okay.
So that's
right after. Baseball's going to be fun this weekend.
Baseball's fun all the time, right?
Yeah. I will say
I got into it last year. I was going to the games. My friend Jack Willoughby,
good seats.
Yeah, great seats. That was it's so much fun.
Yeah,
I enjoy. And I used to never pay attention to college baseball. I got into them, the Aggies, a few years ago.
They got good guys. They're great at what they do.
It's such an exciting environment.
Yeah. Well, you're going to get a lot of baseball today.
All right.
Because in the 9 o'clock hour. So let me.
Brauners are coming right in.
Well, in this hour, we're going to do a lot of basketball.
Okay? Yeah, well, we should.
Yeah, we're going to talk to a Tennessee insider. I believe Luke Evangelist is going to stop by and chit-chat with us for a little bit, too, during the 8 o'clock hour. 9 o'clock hour, John Pugliese Okay.
John Pugliese.
Right. Hey, Griglione.
Pugliese. Liucci coming
Liucci.
in. Liucci.
All right, so we got Pugliese at 9.
It's an Italian hour.
Baseball bunch at 9:20. Okay.
Oh, yeah. The
Scott Clendenin.
Scotty C.
Ricardo Zane. And Ryan Brauninger.
Big Ryan.
And then
Big
at 10 o'clock hour.
10?
Billy Liucci.
The final Italian of the day.
Yeah, the final Italian of the day. There could be others.
Billy Liucci.
Hey, and by the way,
the whole time you're talking that in that segment, you should just every time you talk to Billy, you should do. So Billy, let me ask you.
Yeah, I don't think I would last long on the air. I think it would probably be over real quick. Let's go to the Angry Elephant together and do a show, or not a show, a chit chat.
We should do it next week.
We should do it March 1st.
That would be next week.
4 to 6.
Perfect.
Cypress location.
I like Cypress.
A lot of football, basketball, baseball to discuss.
Whatever they want to talk about.
You want to talk gymnastics? We're good.
We can do some even politics. It is the Angry Elephant, isn't it?
It is the Angry Elephant. We can do whatever.
Pachyderm.
Whatever team you're on.
Yeah.
I think. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Maria Griglione.
Good morning.
Hey, what's up?
Good morning.
Nothing much. How are y'all?
Okay. What's going on in your world?
Today, nothing much, but Aggie Track and Field.
Tell me more.
They sent a men's distance medley relay team, and they are competing in the Alex Wilson Invitational at Notre Dame with events starting tomorrow at 11 a.m., and this is their final regular season indoor meet.
Before the SEC championships, which will be where?
I don't know.
College Station.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
March 1st, that day that we're busy?
We're busy.
There's stuff going on here, too.
Okay, it's going to be hard to get into restaurants. And
you're going to have to be everywhere, OB.
Yeah.
We're going to send you on many assignments.
Probably a good time, a good day to be out of town in Cyprus.
Yeah, but I want you to come back. We're going to attend everything. That's what we're going to do. Griglione, what else?
We have a text from one of Luke Evangelist's friends, and he says, please tell Luke Evangelist that I said hi and that I miss him.
Wait. I think he got you said one of Luke Evangelist's friends? Yeah, I think you could have been fine just saying Luke Evangelist's friend.
Or you could have just said Luke texted himself.
He might have.
I mean, let's be honest. Who else is going to do that?
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Mark, Dad, but Dad's got to love you.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. I would be fine with that. All right, let's hit a break here. When we come back, I think we'll talk to Luke. I don't see him back there. He is there. Okay, Luke and the mustache. We'll talk to him, a little Aggie basketball right after that. We'll talk to Tennessee insider Josh Ward. And there's a lot of basketball this hour, baseball the next hour, and everything in the last hour. But before that, I got to tell you something.
Tell me.
I've been saving up my caloric, what's the word I want?
Budget?
Yeah, my caloric budget. Thank you.
Yeah.
For this weekend. Because I need some 1775. Like, I purposely am like, I just want to just go on a carnivore day. Actually, no. I want to go on a whatever I want to eat day. Yeah. Maybe Saturday afternoon and just eat all the 1775 brisket, ribs, queso mac. That's what I want. I know it's probably not the smart. I think the smart play is to eat more so your stomach is ready to eat more when you get there, like training for it. I've done the opposite just to try to keep my calories at a certain level, but it doesn't matter. When you go there, you throw out the calories. You just eat good
sometimes
food.
The calories worth it.
Yeah.
And that's one of those situations. In fact, yesterday I met the wife at a hot dog place. She wanted a hot dog, and she was with some coworkers, and she was saying, she actually said this, but we need to go to 1775. We need to check this place out because her coworkers hadn't been there. They've heard about how good it is. They've heard about how good it is from her. And I said, well, can we go tomorrow? I said, got a press conference tomorrow.
But there's always the next day.
And then the next day, well, I got a basketball game at 11. But the very next opportunity,
it's Thursday.
We're there.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, I haven't had a hot dog since 1984.
I know, but I still like hot dogs. I had a Chicago dog. And as good as the Chicago dog was, and it was really good, with kind of everything on it.
I'm out.
That's fine. But as good as it was, I would still, of course, would prefer that succulent brisket. Those pork ribs. I love the jalapeno cheese sausage. Of course, like you mentioned, the queso mac and cheese.
They're open Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until they're sold out. Online ordering turns off at 10 a.m. 1775 txbbq.com, or call them up 979-492-6241.
It's Larapin.
TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. The Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. David Nuño, Olin Buchanan, and Luke Evangelist, basketball analyst here in studio. Luke, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Olin. Yeah. Confidence meter, 1 out of 10, entering this game. Let's compare contrast. Actually, before, what do you think his was at? Because I know you weren't listening.
I did not have my headphones in. I'm going to say he was at 7.5.
Okay, what do you think I was at?
6.
Okay. He was at an 8.5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was at a 7.
Okay, all right. I would say that's about fair. That's about where I am.
Which one?
Probably 8.
Okay, so you split the middle.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay. Tell us what we need to know about Tennessee other than the obvious. Good defensive team, top 5 team, like all the metrics. But like, what concerns you about them beyond the metrics?
It's that they're going to force you to beat them from 3. They allow opponents to shoot 28%, which is top 3 best in the country. I know that's kind of A&M's defensive strategy as well, except they tend to get burned by it more often because a lot of teams will hit their open shots, whereas when Tennessee's playing, that's just not the case. Teams don't make a lot of shots when they play Tennessee, and A&M's offense doesn't really make a lot of shots in general. So when you kind of combine a team that already wasn't making shots against a defense that doesn't allow you to make shots, it's probably going to be first to 40 wins. And A&M's defense is going to do that to Tennessee's offense too. It's 2 of the 3 worst scoring offenses in the league playing against 2 of the best defenses in the country.
The 2 best defenses in the league.
Yeah, so, and 2 of the top 5 defenses in the entire country. So, look, in those low-scoring games, sure, you would think that favors A&M, but Tennessee's defense is really good. The thing that makes me feel confident is the last 2 times A&M beat Tennessee at Reed, it was a top 3 Tennessee defense and a number 1 Tennessee defense. They bring in another defense that is rated very similarly and plays the same style as the last 2 ones they beat, and A&M has experience beating Tennessee in 2 different ways. Last year, they made 11 threes, and Wade Taylor got super hot from behind the arc, and they were winning from pretty much wire to wire. And then 2 years ago, they shot like 35 free throws. Wade Taylor hit 1 3, but he made 16 free throws, and A&M just pummeled them inside and wore them down at the line. So there's multiple ways you can beat this Tennessee defense, and it's a defense A&M's seen every single year. They've seen them 5 times with Wade Taylor. This is going to be the 6th. So the thing that gives me confidence is the only time A&M can beat Tennessee is at home, and they're playing them at home.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. They're going to, I'm sure, use the same approach that they've had in the other games. Attack the rim, see if you can't get fouled, or get a putback, attack the rim and see if you can't get to the free throw line so many times that's where you win the game.
Yeah, and that's the strategy that worked against Alabama. They did the first part correctly, and they got a favorable whistle.
Yeah, you got to make them.
They just couldn't make them. But if A&M gets 48 free throws, I will put some money down that they're going to win this game.
Well, I don't. Yeah, if you're going to get 48.
Yeah, but they're not going to get 48 because that will never happen again. And if it does, we're going to be watching that game until, they could do a baseball doubleheader by the time that game ends.
Who's the best scorer on the floor?
In the entire game?
Yeah.
It's probably Chaz Lanier for Tennessee, the transfer from North Florida. And he's really good because there's always attention paid to Zakai Ziegler. And Ziegler's averaging 7.5 assists per game, top 5 in the country. So when you have a Batman and Robin like that can play off each other so well, A&M's best scorer is obviously Wade Taylor, but teams have kind of solved him and put bigger guards on him. The thing about Tennessee is they also have a very undersized guard, and they kind of tend to match up each other. And that's why this matchup is so interesting, because Wade Taylor and Zakai Ziegler, by the 6th time you interview someone, you know everything there is to know about them. These 2 players are like the 2 longest tenured players in the SEC. They know each other's games so well. So Wade knows what to do when he plays on Zakai. Zakai knows what to do when he plays on Wade. And what gives me a lot of confidence is when they play each other, Wade tends to get the better of Zakai Ziegler. He averages 17 points per game, and Zakai averages 11 when they play each other. Wade's gone for 25 both times they've won. So even when A&M loses to Tennessee, Wade is outplaying Zakai Ziegler, and you're going to need him to outduel his undersized guard partner.
Olin, let me follow that up. But it's not just Zakai, right? It's Chaz. So that means Zurich or someone has to match Chaz or get close to matching Chaz.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing with A&M is you need some other guard to score. And I didn't put this in my 3 keys, but really the key for beating any team is you need unexpected scoring help. Like when A&M's at their best, it's Wade Taylor and Zurich Phelps. Yeah, they can give you 30 combined, but Hayden Hefner, C.J. Wilcher, Jace Carter, and Manny Obaseki, those 4 need to combine for 25 points. They need to combine for 20 at least. Yep. And A&M is really good when you look up at the end of the game and it's like, wait, all 4 of those guards had like 5 or 6 points, but they were 5 or 6 meaningful points each. And those add up. And when you play a team like Tennessee where they're going to take away your best options, Jace Carter's going to have to knock down some shots. I know he's been in a slump lately, but he's been playing better. And when I say better, he's made his last 2 shots. And when you see that 3 go in for him against Mississippi State, like he's just 1 or 2 shots away from getting back to his old self. And we all remember what he did against Tennessee last year. That big dunk was just what he needed to unlock his confidence. And I mean, I'm not calling a Jace Carter breakout game, but he has been shooting the ball better than he has. Like he went 5 straight games without making a 3. And for him to make 1 against Mississippi State, I think is promising.
One of the things that I think is going to be interesting about this game is when we look at the last couple of times when A&M has beaten Tennessee, they beat them despite not being as good inside and productive inside as they are now.
Yeah.
And I do wonder what kind of impact Pharrell Payne and an improved Henry Coleman and, Solomon and, all those guys that play, the bigs, Anderson. I do wonder what kind of impact they're going to have on this game. And if possibly they are going to get the best of Meshach and all those guys from Tennessee inside.
Yeah.
If they're going to be able to compensate for some other things by beating them close to the basket.
Yeah, they can't miss layups. Payne cannot get in foul trouble.
Yeah.
That's the key right there. That's why it's hard for him. He's such a player that needs to build up his rhythm.
Yep.
And when he gets in 2 fouls early against Mississippi State, gets his 3rd like a minute into the second half, he's not going to have a productive night. And you need somebody who can beat Tennessee inside to open things up outside and give your shooters just half a second more of time to get their shot off because they're worried about Pharrell Payne inside.
I really think that was the difference in the game, that Mississippi State was able to have more of a physical presence in the paint than A&M because of the foul trouble and some of the turnovers.
And the foul calls that they were getting, and the refs were not the reason A&M lost that game, but when there's just a slight difference in the calls that A&M gets versus what their opponents get, that impacts a team like A&M more than your average team because A&M has to get to the line and get those freebies. Their offense can't run by shooting single-digit free throws.
Good job, Luke. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks.
All right, we'll hit a break here. We'll come back with a Tennessee insider. Break that down from their perspective. Right now, we're talking Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They're stocking up on new vehicles and have a wide selection. You can take a short drive to save money without any dealer add-ons, plus free oil changes on every new or pre-owned vehicle purchase. And they're also now a business elite dealer, so they can help get vehicles for all of your small business or commercial needs. Reach out to them, and they'll help you find what you need for your business. It's not a far drive. We're talking 15 minutes. The edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. A short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. We're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Buffy's Catering Hotline. Tennessee insider Josh Ward joining us. You can catch him on the Sports Animal 99.1. Good morning, Josh. How you doing, buddy?
How you doing? Great. Great to be with you.
Thanks for joining us. So we're trying to figure out this matchup because there's a lot of different ways you can slice it up. You can slice it up in that A&M has done really well against Tennessee the last few years when both teams are highly ranked defensively when it comes to Reed Arena. You can also look at the metrics that all point towards Tennessee being a better team. You can also look at what A&M has done in conference play compared to Tennessee. When you look at this matchup, what do you think is the biggest thing that separates these two programs on Saturday?
Well, I think a lot of the conversation in Knoxville this week is about how well Texas A&M can rebound, how Texas A&M can rebound on the offensive glass, keeping in mind what happened last year when Tennessee went to College Station and the way Anderson Garcia dominated and how A&M controlled what was happening there on the glass and on the court. And Tennessee took that personally when the game returned to Knoxville and Tennessee was able to get its own revenge there. But going on the road in college basketball is difficult. Going on the road for this Tennessee team has been difficult at times. And I think this week, where Tennessee's had the whole week to get ready, has been about making sure they have the right aggressive mindset for 40 minutes. That's another part of the conversation that Tennessee's had on its own side is coming off last week's game against Vanderbilt. Tennessee had a terrific second half and rallied, but they didn't have the right mindset for 40 minutes. The first half was ugly. And Tennessee knows if it has that kind of mindset to start out against Texas A&M, trying to come back on the road against the Aggies, it's going to be really difficult.
Hey, Josh, Olin Buchanan here. When Tennessee is successful, what are a couple of things they're typically doing? Like when A&M's successful, they're getting to the free throw line and, obviously keeping their offensive rebounding, getting to the free throw line, keeping their turnovers low. What is Tennessee typically doing when they're successful, and what's typically happening when Tennessee is struggling?
When Tennessee's doing really well, they're really good at applying pressure on the ball on the defensive side. Tennessee has the number one ranked defensive efficiency, at least metric in the country. They can really cause problems for guards with the basketball. Now, you have the experience on Texas A&M side, which is going to be aware of that going in. But I think defending on the perimeter, protecting the rim, as Felix Akpar came in as a transfer from Ohio State and has been what Tennessee hoped he would be when he's at his best from a physical standpoint around the basket and helping defend the rim. So when they're locked in defensively, they make things very difficult for the opponent. On the offensive end, I can say when they hit shots, but that can be pretty obvious. Tennessee's hit and miss, though, on the outside. If they can attack the glass, I mentioned the second half comeback against Vanderbilt last weekend. A lot of that was because Tennessee was in an attacking mindset. Zakai Ziegler is going to be the smallest guy on the floor, but he's been very good at getting to the basket. He can draw fouls, but I think his teammates kind of follow his lead there. If Zakai's going to the basket, Igor Milicic will go to the basket. He's a guy that is really important in being able to stretch things out, hit shots from the outside, and then attack the rim as well. And then one other player to mention, he's pretty obvious, but Chaz Lanier, the numbers back it up. When he hits shots and when he puts up points, Tennessee wins. Tennessee is 16-1 when he scored 16 or more points this season. Chaz Lanier shooting the ball well, and again, the mindset, being aggressive and trying to get his shot, changes what Tennessee is offensively.
Josh, how important is this game considering where Tennessee is in the standings and wanting to get that double bye?
It's a big opportunity game for both teams, but Tennessee entered the week slightly ahead of Texas A&M. The Vols, as I mentioned, have had all week to get ready for this game. They had no midweek game this week. So Tennessee looked at this one and said, hey, if we can go beat a projected 2 seed on the road, the Vols will need some help, but they got a little bit of that earlier in the week with Alabama losing at Missouri. Tennessee is trying to get one of those number 1 seeds, and that's very possible. Tennessee still has a game a week from Saturday, so Saturday, March 1st, at home against Alabama, so they'll get a head-to-head opportunity there. Tennessee's looking at it saying, if we can go 4-1, definitely 5-0, we have a real shot at a number 1 seed. But I think Tennessee also looks at it and says, we need to win this game if it's going to be realistic. So Tennessee looks at it as an opportunity, a statement game. The Volunteers have the second most quad one wins in the country behind Auburn. This is a big opportunity to try to get one of those one seeds, because catching Alabama is a realistic shot. They could try to get Florida as well, but Florida's win at Auburn, I think, makes that tough. Beating Texas A&M, beating Alabama next week makes that a possibility. Tennessee's never had a number one seed in the NCAA tournament. They could do it this year.
Josh, look, it seems like every year that Tennessee gets into the NCAA tournament, gets to the Sweet 16, and has great expectations and falls just a little bit short. And I just wonder, hey, if you get to the Sweet 16 every year, I applaud that, right? But I just wonder, is there getting some, maybe heat's not the right word, because Rick Barnes isn't going to lose his job, but is there any discontent going on around as far as Rick Barnes not being able to take them to maybe to the Final Four, the next step?
Yes, there is. It's been somewhat confusing to me, Olin. I'll tell you, this season especially, we've had this conversation because Tennessee has been up and down at different times in SEC play, and we know how good the league is, right, in basketball this year. But a loss has brought so much concern from Tennessee fans, despite, in most of those cases, Tennessee remaining in the top 5, definitely the top 10 through SEC play. Remember, they were number 1 in the country for 5 weeks. And as they've lost some games in SEC play, they've still remained in a really good position as a projected number 1 or number 2 seed. And I've repeatedly remind the fans that on our show. And a lot of fans say, yeah, that's right, we are in a good position. We should appreciate what's going on. But it's been noticeable that there are enough fans saying, this team, this program, it just has a ceiling. And I maybe that's the case, but they went to the Elite Eight last year, and they ran into Zach Edey and Purdue. Otherwise, they might have made the Final Four for the first time in program history last season, and they'll be positioned to be able to go on a run this year. Yes, the offense has not been consistent enough, and yes, if they struggle to hit shots in the NCAA tournament, they could get knocked out, but that applies to everybody. So, yeah, there are a lot of Tennessee fans that they have some level of fear of what's going to happen in the NCAA tournament, while I've at least tried to remind them, hey, enjoy this ride. Tennessee's in a better position overall when you zoom out than it's ever been in program history.
Sounds like good advice for Texas A&M.
Well, I was thinking, you're talking, I'm like, is he talking about A&M right now, or is he talking about Tennessee? Because it's the exact same feeling here.
Yeah.
Not that Buzz is, people are calling for his job, not that, but just the fear right. because of the offensive issues and the limitations.
Yeah, think about this. Auburn is the number 1 team in the country. They're most likely going to be the number 1 overall seed. Bruce Pearl's the former Tennessee basketball coach. He still comes up in conversation. And I offered this reminder earlier in the week. They went to the Final Four, it's an incredible run, and Bruce deserves all kinds of credit for what they've done. But the perspective would be that's the only time they made the second weekend with Bruce Pearl as the head coach. They had the very disappointing first-round loss last year. And my point is not to criticize Bruce. He deserves, again, all kinds of credit. It's a reminder of how difficult it is. Virginia went on that run, won the national championship. Look at the before and after, where they kept getting knocked out early. So perspective is important. I think A&M is in a terrific position. I think very highly of Buzz Williams. And what Rick Barnes has done over the time, he's now been in Knoxville for a decade. He's the greatest coach in Tennessee basketball history with the collection of work he's put together, multiple Sweet 16s, an Elite Eight last year, several runs at number 1 in the country, and positioned again to be able to go on a run in the NCAA tournament. If they get knocked out in the first weekend as a 1, 2, or 3 seed, well, then be disappointed. But I don't think you need to fear that going in.
Josh, great stuff, man. Thanks for your time, buddy.
You got it. Thank you.
Take care. Josh Ward on TexAgs Live. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with Around Aggieland and bank on it. Right now, Bird Dog, an Aggie-owned company that creates access to hunting opportunities. You don't have to live in Texas. You can be all over the place. Josh is still on the Zoom. He can get a Bird Dog and have them set up an awesome hunt. They'll do all the logistics. They got the 5-star ranches, the music. It's so good. You certainly want to check out what Bird Dog does if you're into hunting. And if you're a landowner, they can help you find money on your land as well. They have all these different ways to find you these tax exemptions that you don't even think about. They'll find it for you. All you need to do is be farming or running cattle on your land, and they're going to optimize and find you those tax benefits. Some of their clients are making an extra $100 to $500 per acre of land. They can be your personal consultant and help you maximize the income on your land. If you're a ranch broker, you need to talk to them as they can help your buyer or your seller understand the additional ways to make money. You don't even have to sell hunts on that program. The website is birddogit.com. Birddogit.com. Check it. And we're back on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Time for a little Vera Bank time with Bank on it. Brought to you by Vera Bank. What? You give me that look?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Well, because I switched it up. I did Vera Bank time instead of Bank on it.
Yeah.
What are you going to bank on this weekend?
I'm going to tell you what I'm banking on. It's something we talked about earlier this week that hadn't happened all year.
Tell me more.
We talked about how Wade Taylor and Zurich Phelps have not scored 20 points in the same game.
Yep.
I'm banking on it happened this year. You know what? It happened last year. Wasn't obviously Zurich Phelps, but when they beat Tennessee here, I think Wade had 25 and Boots had 27.
I'll take that all day.
And so I'm looking for that 2020. I got 2020 vision on Wade and Zurich scoring 20 points each.
I'm banking on a Henry Coleman game. One of those games where like, that's the Henry I know.
Okay.
You know, maybe 11 strong points, 8 rebounds, but just some key plays, just like those memorable plays. And by the way, you can go see Joel Jackson and the team at verabank.com. Let's go around Aggieland, presented by Normandy State Bank. Normandy State Bank, rock solid banking. The website, normandystatebank.com. And with that, we have Kay Naegeli, who walked in a little later than usual. Okay?
Yeah, well, Nick caught me off guard. He said 30 seconds, and then that 30 seconds came a lot faster than I thought. And that's how long I thought I had for my hit. And so I was like mentally preparing.
I've been giving you time recently.
I know. It's been so nice. I greatly appreciate it. So all these beautiful blackout graphics you see in the studio are for our blackout of Reed Arena against Tennessee. That will be tomorrow at 11 a.m. Should be a fun one. I know a lot of Tennessee games in the past have been awesome at Reed Arena. So hopefully the number 7 Aggies look to get back in the win column after a loss to Mississippi State on the road. Want to move over to the women's basketball front. They dropped their 7th straight contest, unfortunately, as Florida toppled the Aggies 74-52. The second quarter just didn't go the Aggies' way. It was a rough one, another rough one out in Reed Arena. Next, they will continue their search for a win in Starkville, taking on Mississippi State. Their last 3 opponents reside in the lower half of the conference, so hopefully they can end their regular season on a positive note. That will be on Sunday at 2 p.m. Baseball is back at Bluebell Park this weekend. They are taking on Cal Poly in a 3-game series. For those who have not heard, due to inclement weather tonight, the Friday's series opener has been moved up to a 4 p.m. start. So make sure you get over to Bluebell early tonight. And then the 6th-ranked Fighting Texas Aggie softball team is headed back to Florida for the Joanne Graf Classic. They actually kick off Florida A&M at 9:30. You can turn on that game in about 30 minutes. And actually, I don't think that's broadcasted, but you can catch all the notes and stuff via Texas A&M softball, I'm sure. And then they have also a doubleheader with number 8 Florida State tomorrow. That's going to be a good one. And then they will play Southeastern Louisiana on Sunday. And then for more updates on women's tennis, men's golf, women's golf, equestrian, track and field, and swimming and diving, you can check out our website.
Great stuff. Okay, appreciate you very, very much. All right, we're going to hit a break here, and then we're going to talk to John Pugliese. Pugliese's joining the show. He says he's got experience coaching a team at Wagner back in 2007 that had some offensive limitations, and he's going to kind of go through what some of the good and bad was with that team and compare it to Texas A&M. So we'll have all that, and we'll get to your text messages, your phone calls, the baseball bunch, Billy Liucci. Any closing thoughts, OB?
Just win, man. It's a big game. It's a big game. I still hope A&M can earn that double bye, but it's going to be really difficult.
I agree. Yep, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Win.
All right, that's going to do it. I do believe the softball game is being broadcasted. I believe the folks at Bryan Broadcasting are doing it, I think, on one of the other stations. So if you need that, go check them out or go to the A&M softball Twitter page. They'll have the info for you. It's TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. And we're back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio, hour number 2 of the program. Let's go to the Buppies Catering Hotline. That's where we find John Pugliese, A&M basketball insider, to talk about all great things A&M. Mr. Pugliese, how you doing, sir?
I'm great, David. How are you?
I'm well. So I know you tweeted a couple things. You shot me a text. Let's kind of get into it. So you were a coach on the Wagner team in 07-08 that did not shoot well. You guys had a lot of success, but also there were some big blunders. So kind of take us through that year and how that equates to potentially A&M.
Yeah, so like in my former life, right? I was an assistant for Mike Dean, who was the former head coach at Marquette, the head coach at Lamar in Texas, and Siena College as well. But I worked for him at Wagner College, and you know, we had this team that was really, really good. We had 2 first-team All-League guys on a 5-team all-conference team. We had the 3rd leading rebounder in the country. We had a terrific point guard who could really score it. And then I was just thinking about the similarities, and then you know, I went to the website statreference.com, I think is what it is, or some piece of that. And I was looking at our rankings from 2007, 2008, and then I kind of cross-referenced that with A&M, and when a team doesn't shoot it well, they can dominate a regular season. Okay, they have luck on their side in ways that you don't later in the year. And they're really like securing their own chances. They're counting on getting their opponents to miss shots, to come down, to get multiple opportunities on the offensive end through offensive rebounding, points in the paint. But the luck factor kind of runs out as you move forward in conference play and then into conference tournaments and national tournaments. And you know, like when I was at Wagner, we shot 44% from the field, was 146th in the country. The Aggies shoot 42%. That's 312th in the country. We shot 31% from 3. They shot 31% from 3. Or they shoot 31% from 3. We were off by a couple free throws, but the idea is we shot about the same amount of free throws. The big kicker for me is we shot 59.9% from the free throw line. The Aggies, at least they shoot 68.2. But they're 300th in the country. We were 339th. You don't get as many points from converting on free throws, and that's a huge indicator in a lot of ways. Our rebounding numbers were similar. And what I'm getting at is you can win games this way. You can dominate games at times in this way. And yet, you know, when you play a team who does not fit you stylistically, you're going to have issues, which is what you saw against Mississippi State. And, you know, hopefully we don't see it, but what you could see come conference tournament time and the NCAA tournament. Because the luck runs out ways that A&M has really made their own luck. And the shooting catches up with you, which is what we saw the other night. It was hard for A&M to get in their offensive set. It was hard for them to get going. They couldn't find places in transition. They couldn't get 2 feet in the paint to make a play. They didn't get much from their bigs. And all those things just connect in a way, David, that like it makes it tough. And while I'm not concerned, I'm not like blowing the horn. I think this A&M team is really good. The similarities are very real and there. And that's why I've been on this C.J. Wilcher train so much, is because he adds this dimension to your team that you don't have anywhere else.
Talking to John Pugliese here on TexAgs Live. What do you think happened with him? Like, why is it really as simple? When I say him, C.J. Wilcher, is it as simple as defensively he doesn't fit what Buzz is trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, you watch him on defense. He doesn't pressure up as well as maybe some of the other the other players who they are playing. He doesn't have as much length as some of those guys. He doesn't have the athleticism that some of those guys have. He doesn't really fit them stylistically, defensively, and it's not like he's getting scored on every time that the guy he's defending has the ball. And because of the way they play, I think quite honestly, like, you've got to be okay with trading a bucket, and giving up a basket for a couple threes. Like, I just think he's not a sieve on defense, right? Like, they're not just going right by him every time, but he just isn't the same as any. He's not the same as Hayden Hefner's length, right? He's not the strength and the same size as Jace Carter. So I think it has a lot to do with him on defense, but quite frankly, I'm okay with that at this point, because he adds a dimension that not only gets you a couple threes a game or a three a game when he's in, but it also spreads out the defense in ways that they aren't when Wade and Phelps and Manny are on the court together. There's just not as much space for Wade to work. There's not as much space for Phelps to work. And so if you have this guy stretching the defense, they have to stay a little bit closer to him. Like, I would rather play 4-on-4 and let them deny CJ Wilcher and he doesn't get a touch, but he's on the court. I believe in my 4-on-4 in ways that I haven't believed in my 5-on-5 without Wilcher on the court lately. And that's just kind of the reality of it. And I think it's a hard thing to figure out, right? Especially when you have guys who you really count on the defensive end, and that's where the Aggies have made their kind of mark. But I think he's got to be there. I think he's got to be on the court.
Talking to John Pugliese here on TexAgs Live. You tweeted, though, of where we are in the season. There's still a lot of games left to finish out this SEC play, but that you still see A&M as a 2 seed regardless of what happened this past week against Mississippi State, and also considering the Missouri victory and how good Missouri looks.
And that's why I don't want to sound the alarm for everyone, and why I think it's okay. This isn't football. You don't lose one game and you drop off out of the rankings, right? Like, we're not there with this team. It's a top 25 loss, right? Like, it is a loss that you obviously wanted, but this is still, in my opinion, a 2 seed right now. I don't think one SEC loss in the best conference in the country that's going to get probably 12 NCAA tournament teams. I don't think one loss takes them off the 2 line. Now, they have to play well here. In my opinion, right, they've got to go 3-2. They've got to beat Florida or Auburn or Tennessee, and they might have to beat 2 or 3, right, which would have them go 4-1. But I like them as a 2 seed. At the very least, I like them as a 3, and I think those would obviously both benefit A&M a ton. Some of these losses are getting better. Like Missouri, like Dennis Gates is probably the national coach of the year, and you went to Missouri and you beat them on their home floor, a place that's really hard to win at right now. You just saw it the other night. So, yeah, I think they're a 2 seed right now, regardless of, everyone. I know we hear about the metrics, but they're 16th in net, and I don't think we're that far off here from them winning some of these games to end the year and them remaining on the 2 line.
John, the interesting part is that one loss can change the vibe, because this is who A&M has been in losses and in wins, right? Like, this is who they are. They're a team that does go offensively cold often. They're a team that really has to survive on the free throw line. So the style of basketball, this is who they've been really the last few years.
Yeah, and this is when A&M plays its best basketball. So, and has under Bud. So, this loss, while it is a part of the problem, right? The inability to score in bunches. Although we saw it when they put that shutout on the other night, or a couple games ago, right, for 12 minutes or whatever it was, and went on a 22-0 run. This team is going to struggle at times. The idea behind adding another guy who can really shoot it on the court is those don't stretch out. Those don't become bigger problems. Chris Jans, the head coach of Mississippi State, did a terrific job, right? He coached like coaches are supposed to coach in that game. That game plan was terrific. Their team was ready to play. All those things mattered. And A&M doesn't have the ability to adjust because, quite honestly, with this makeup and the way they've done things, we are who we are. And sometimes that works really well in our favor, like it did for us at Wagner. I mean, we lost games we went 23-8, 15-3 in the league, and in our league we lost the game by 20, by 24, and by 18. Right? So and we won 15 other games. Right? 20, 26, and 22. And we lost the game during that season by 42 to Kansas State when they had Michael Beasley. Right? So you're going to run into issues at times the way that you're playing, and you hope that the length of the schedule, the playing the best basketball at the end of the year, you hope that puts you over the hump. Where it gets a little tricky is come those tournaments when you lose and you're out, right? Because luck isn't on your side, though. So you run into a buzzsaw, someone who can really shoot it. You run into one of these lower level teams who isn't seated as high as maybe they should, right? Then you're yeah, we just, season's over. And so I'm a little bit concerned about that run, but I'm not concerned about the here and now with the rest of the conference. Now, if they go 1-4 in the last 5, you're gonna be talking to me about something else. But I don't see that happening. I just think this team is so resilient, and they'll get back on the horse.
Talking to John Pugliese here on TexAgs Live. So Tennessee does not commit a lot of fouls. A&M loves to score by getting to the line, and they didn't get to the line a lot against Mississippi State. So how do they force the action tonight, John?
Yeah, I think they need to spread things out. I think they need to be a little bit different offensively than they have. I think you need to use Wade a little bit more off the ball, which they don't do as often, but Bell can certainly handle the ball in the full court, bring it up, and you can have Wade run off some screens and do some different things. I'm not saying that C.J. Wilcher is going to all of a sudden play 25 minutes. I don't expect that, but I think he at this point should be in the 18 to 20 minute range. I think he got 14 against Mississippi State, was 3 for 4 from 3. I think you also need to get 2 feet in the paint, right? So you need a little bit more space to work. The ball screens can't come from the middle third against Tennessee because, if anything, Rick Barnes does a really terrific job of getting his bigs in a position to hedge and string things out in a way that doesn't allow your guards to make plays initially out of a ball screen. So you got to get a little bit more creative against a guy like Rick Barnes and Tennessee. Tennessee doesn't commit a lot of fouls. They are just as physical as A&M, and the point guard play is probably the deciding factor. Right, I see this point guard matchup in a way that is 2 of the best in the country, in the best league in the country, and it puts them head to head in a lot of ways that you don't always get to see in college basketball. I'm really excited about that matchup. I also think you got to establish some dominance down low, which is tough against Tennessee. But if I'm A&M, I'm force feeding the ball on the first 3 possessions to Pharrell Payne in the paint or whoever in the paint. Now I'm telling them to take 1 dribble, go right up and go through somebody to get to the line. You got to try and draw some fouls early, which is hard against Tennessee, but you've got to try and do that and not just let them wall up and then kind of throughout the game you're making it hard on yourself because you're playing comeback.
John, how much can you read into recent success against Tennessee at home? Different team, well, very similar A&M team, but different Tennessee teams.
Yeah, I don't put a whole lot of stock in the last couple times that a coach played a coach, they beat them, and all that stuff. I don't put a lot of stock in that. I think A&M has shown an affinity for playing at home this year. I think Rita Remus has been terrific in a lot of those games. I think it adds an element when you're on your home turf. I also see in the ways that they're really similar, they have similar struggles as well. So this could be one of those games where you see the other side of what you saw A&M versus Mississippi State, right? You see a Tennessee team who might struggle getting the ball across against A&M's pressure in different defensive matchups. And I think this ends up being a really close game in a way that whoever executes best at the end. I mean, Tennessee's lost 4 or 5, or they're lost 4 of their last 9. This isn't a team who's dominating right now. They've lost to Kentucky twice. They lost to Vanderbilt. They've got another loss in there. Like, this isn't a team who was dominated. So I don't think this is a team who you have to be scared of. That I think they're really good, but I actually don't think they're a 2 seed right now. And I think A&M might be. So when I watch the basketball side, and I'm not just looking at the metrics, which I know like computers are great and all that stuff is awesome. But when I watch the basketball side, I don't see a team who's dominating and is a 2 seed out of Tennessee. Now they could, against the Aggies, but as of late, I haven't seen that.
I think they've won 4 or 5, John. I think they're playing pretty good ball recently. They got wins over Vandy. Sorry?
They've won 4 or 5, but they're 4 and 5 of their last 9. Is that,
I see what you're saying.
West Coast, David.
Yeah.
It's still early on the West Coast.
Yeah. So let's close that on this. How do you assess Wade's season and what he needs to do now to carry this team across the finish line of SEC play?
Wade, the opponents are going to key in on you and make it difficult on you. I think he's done a good job of understanding pressures and the way that opponents are guarding him. They're being more physical with him. He's having a harder time getting by guys. And some of that could be injury-related stuff. Some of that could just be, more teams are focusing in on him, and he hasn't really gotten to stretch things out the way that he has in the past couple of years. I said this a couple of weeks ago, and he went on a tear. I do see Wade taking off here. I know he had the really big game against Georgia, and then hasn't really strung it together shooting the ball here as of late. But I do see him finding his mark. I just think they need to find more ways to get him the ball in space. Because A&M doesn't put a lot of pressure on the defense in transition, they get, a lot of what they do is based on stops in transition, turnovers that leads to their baskets in transition. But like off of a rebound, they're not pushing the tempo. And I think Wade needs to get more comfortable pushing the tempo, putting pressure on the defense early in the shot clock, and not where they're just running a set where all 5 eyes are on him, because he's going to shoot it a quarter of the time. If they know that, right, the stats tell us that, then when he's taking it slow and when they're walking the ball up and they're setting a stationary middle third ball screen, right, all of those things, the defense just is staring at you and there's no room for you to go anywhere on the court. And so I think he's done a really good job within the confines of the offense. His stats might not say it, but I do believe that he's, close here because I see the floor game improving. And hopefully he can hit a couple shots early, which puts him over the hump for the Tennessee game, because when that dude gets started, he's off.
John, great stuff, buddy. Thanks so much for your time. Did I lose John? John just went silent on me. We'll talk to you soon, John. Okay, David. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. All right. We'll hit a break. When we come back on TexAgs Live, the baseball bunch, the baseball roundtable, Brawny, Zane, Clendenin will be in studio. We'll talk about the first weekend. We'll look at this next weekend here against Cal Poly. Right now, if your organization or business is looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, you need to check out the Association of Former Students. They bring Aggies of all ages together during marquee events held throughout the year. We're talking about Aggie Ring Day, All Aggie Hullabaloo, The Gathering. They all welcome tens of thousands of guests, and there are many sponsorship and vendor opportunities to get your brand in front of those attendees. They offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brand and get your brand in front of all those people. They have advertising opportunities in both the Texas Aggie magazine and the Aggie News newsletter, which are seen by over 230,000 people. So if your business is ready to engage with Aggies, choose a partner with the organization that's been supporting the Aggie Network for over 140 years. For more information on options available through the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. It is the Association of Former Students. And we are back, TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Hour number 2 of the program. It is the baseball bunch now, Baseball Roundtable. Scott Clendenin. Hello, sir.
Good morning to you, sir.
I haven't seen you in a minute. Good to see you.
I know, it's been a while.
Good to see you.
Because you didn't come last week.
No, I was doing some family stuff. Richard, how you doing, buddy?
He's got a long sleeve polo on. It's kind of sick.
Do they still do those?
I don't know, but thank you, Dave South. I'll say it
it's a
again.
good look.
It's sick.
It's a good look.
I see Dave South in Gold's Gym every now and then.
Yeah.
Putting Olin to shame.
This is true.
I'm not surprised.
Does he put you to shame?
Probably. I hope that I'm at his age. I hope I'm in there lifting weights and moving around.
I don't see it.
I just hope that I'm vertical. I hope I'm alive.
By the way, Ryan Brauninger on the program as well. Hi, Bronny.
Good morning.
Good to. So, I want to look ahead, look back, all the stuff you can do. I'm disappointed we didn't have a game on Tuesday, but after one series, and Scotty, you start us off. Tell me your takeaways of the weekend.
Well, I think that, I thought that Bronny had some pretty accurate grades after this weekend's performance. Defensively was more the question mark than anything else there. Starting pitching was good. Some of the guys that got to break the ice in the bullpen, not surprised at some of those performances. It is what it is. That's why I asked Coach Early about it last week. How do you get those opportunities to get those guys in? And, it went according to plan. Some guys had the success that they had in spring and fall scrimmages. Some guys did not. But defensively, I'm sure that they need to pick it up. Now, of course, you get a week where the baseball feels like you're throwing, hitting, and catching a rock. And that's something that A&M and Cal Poly will have to adjust to.
It's interesting to me that if you look at the schedule, Texas A&M should have played or could have played 36 innings of baseball by now. They have played, I think I did the math this morning, they've played 22 offensive innings out of a possible 36 through a week into the season. That is a major wrench in Michael Early's plans, at least of course, this is how it goes, that you draw up an ideal way that you want to open the season and a plan to go out there and do it. And then run rule, curfew, Mother Nature eliminates most of it. So there's no way that you can convince me that going into weekend 2, he would want Bear Harrison to have 2 at-bats, official at-bats, that Yamal Georges had 1. That Sawyer Farr only got 2. Those were guys that he wanted to get at-bats early in the season because they had earned those at-bats with how they played in the preseason. So this weather stuff, you can never count on anything. And you can't control it, obviously, but it has thrown a big kind of hurdle into the way of the ideal scenario that the coaching staff had going into the season.
Harrison got a start, but then the other one that you didn't mention was Matt Bergman, 1 at bat.
Yeah, that's
and so those innings, those opportunities for guys off the bench have been few and far between just because of the conditions you've had to deal with the run rule and a game canceled, but. Then keep in mind how few guys have gotten to see multiple runouts from the bullpen, right? We've seen Clayton Freshcorn once. He was good on Friday night in a 4-out save. Ty Baker, we've seen him once. He's a redshirt freshman. Things didn't go well for him in the finale, but let's see how he does the next time out. Luke Jackson, Caden Wilson, guys who haven't pitched that much this year, who somebody's going to have to emerge. So it would have been nice to have gotten that game in on Tuesday, just to see more guys throw the ball. And, of course, the name that gets asked about a ton is Grant Cunningham hasn't thrown yet this year.
Yeah, Jackson Brousseau, Aiden Sims, Caden McCoy, Gavin Lyons, all those guys that the coaching staff wanted to get innings, they just haven't been able to get them. And losing 9 in the midweek is a massive detriment to that. So there's nothing they can do about it, but it's just not ideal.
So it's good that they actually got to use Weston Moss on Friday.
Yes.
Because that he wasn't just sitting there and missed his start as well. It was one of the things that did go right, that they were able to get him into that game while they were holding him for the Tuesday start.
Out of curiosity, other programs in the area probably dealt with the same thing. I know we don't care about them, but because A&M is such a veteran team, you still want those youngsters to get those opportunities because they're a veteran team.
Yeah, but it's a veteran team with a rookie coach, and he wants as many opportunities to manage his ball club in as many different scenarios as he can. And I asked him on Monday, how much managing did you get to do, or do you feel like you did in the opening series compared to there's part of it early on where you run guys out there and you let them play.
Yeah.
You don't manage them, you just let them play. And so that's what I think he did the majority of in that opening weekend. But there's going to be situations where he's going to have to make tough decisions in an inning, offensively or defensively on the mound, that he needs those reps too. Will Fox needs those reps at third base, sending guys, holding guys. So they're just behind from that aspect, and there's nothing they can do about it. But to your point, David, having the massive amount of veteran leadership on the roster should help mitigate a little bit of that.
All right, before we hit a break, I want to ask about Jace, not only because he had the big weekend, but when you have the target that he has on his back, and Richard, you started us off, and everybody's talking about you, and there's probably your own pressure to deliver, and he did deliver to start off the season.
I wouldn't even say that he had a big weekend by his standards. He had 3 hits. They all leave the ballpark, so he's creeping closer to Dalen Holton. It's awesome to see the ball leave the park, but man, Jace Lavallette's a guy that can go 5 for 10 in a weekend and walk 4 times. So it's good for him to not see an offer in that column, but I still expect a lot more from him. And it's going to be tough hitting conditions again this weekend, just like it was against Elon. So we'll see how he and the others fare. But Jace Lavallette's capable of much more than just 3 for 10 with 3 homers in a single week.
Well, when you put Jace's numbers up from the weekend, it's 300 with 3 home runs. He'll take that every day, every weekend. But I think to talk about Jace's greatness and not mention how he played on defense doesn't do him the justice. If he just hit the way he hits and had the power outputs that he does, he would be still considered amongst the best players in college baseball and the best professional prospects. But when you add in the way he runs, he stole a base this weekend, the way he played defense on balls to right center and left center, in the air, on the ground, that is what's made him such a complete prospect. So
showed off the arm too on Sunday.
Right. So you got a good glimpse of everything that Jace does at an elite level in the opening weekend. And he walked a bunch. So 3 for 10, could it be better? Yeah, but that's still really good. The ball left the ballpark. I was telling Richard in the lobby, I'm glad that Jace got off to a good start because of trying to bounce or battle that whatever perceived pressure that there was, right? It's not easy that every time you open social media, if you're Jace Lavalette, your face is plastered on Twitter, on Instagram. There's people making TikToks about you, about the NFL draft. No matter what platform of social media you open, Jace sees himself. And it's impossible to avoid. Yep. So he's got to deal with that every day. And I think he did a great job of getting off to a start that he can do that.
2 years ago, Dylan Cruz did get off to a very good start for LSU, and that kind of mitigated that. And then Skeens burst on it, and it was like who was going to be 1-1 and who's going to be 1-2. And they could kind of work that out amongst themselves, but they did get off to that start. You don't want the 1 for 16 where you hit the ball hard right at somebody over and over again and didn't get anything for it. I think that, 3 home runs, the RBIs, and still got pitched around like you did, that's a lot better start to a season when you're a 1-1 prospect. Because last year, Georgia got off to the great start, and everybody was talking about, hey, can this guy hit 500 all year long? It's a little bit different story when you have the rough start as a good start.
You don't start the season with doubt in your mind. Yeah. You don't have doubt created by struggling in the first couple of series. So I'm glad Jace got off to the start.
All right, if you guys have a question for the baseball bunch, send it in, 979-693-1150. Maria will read that at the Angry Elephant Newsman Social Center. You can also send it on the YouTube or TexAgs chat. Right now, we're talking Rollo Insurance. The difference is real. They're an independent insurance company built around educating you on exactly what you're paying for, doing the shopping for you so that you can accomplish your insurance goals. A goal without a plan is just a wish, and when going gets tough, and sooner or later it will, who are you going to call? You're going to call a call center, an automated phone tree, or a personal agent to your personal agent's cell phone number, which I have done on many occasions. All options are not created equal. At Rollo Insurance, there are good days, and they want to make sure they keep you away from the bad days. And when those come, they want to make sure that they take care of you. The website is rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. That website again, rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. Or call them up, 888-44-ROLLO. That's 888-44-ROLLO. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Baseball Bunch guys here with us. We go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Some questions have been coming in. Maria Griglione is there. Gonna throw out some questions.
Yes, from Weldon Collins on YouTube, Baseball Bunch.
Term.
Huh?
Nothing.
Oh, Baseball Bunch, how do you keep Terrence Keel off the field even when Sorrell comes back? Guy is a player. Thanks.
Interesting question. Good problem to have. I don't know. Because of his positional versatility, you can do a lot of things with him. There's obviously also a chance that he goes to the bench and impacts games late with his speed or an at-bat. It also gives you late in game if Hayden Schott gets on. You could run for him with TK, and then you add TK to the order, and that's another good bat in the lineup. It is going to be hard because of the way TK's play, but I love Terrence Keel Jr. I think we all think he's going to be a fantastic player here, but it's just one weekend.
Yeah.
It's just one weekend. There's no book on him. He's an elite athlete, so his ability to make adjustments is way quicker than most. But there's still going to be some adjustments that are going to need to be made as the book gets out on him and the pitching gets better. So, love what he did. Very deserved honor, SEC Co-Freshman of the Week, and pumped that TK is at Texas A&M. But let's just let the season play out before we make definitive statements, not just about him, but about everybody in the lineup.
Caden Sorrells went through this last year as well. And then Hayden Schott went to designated hitter. Burton went to first base. It all worked itself out. It's part of what you build this team to do. And then when Caden Kent was the one who stayed ready for when his time was called, that is what this team has to build upon. That's why midweek games that you didn't get this last week are so important. That's why when you have simulated games, it's so important. You get used to making yourself ready. And the examples for whoever talks to TK is, hey, I had to wait a little bit and then I had my time. Or I had to wait a long time and had my time. Or instantly I was the guy and they moved everything around for me. All of that is on this team, and I think that the leadership on this team, going back to what we talked about in the first segment, the leadership on this team is in a great position to help a star prospect or someone that can emerge have their time in the lineup and their time in the dugout be productive.
Certainly a lot to dream on with TK. I mean, the skill set's really impressive. It's exciting to watch him run, right? So that gives him a weapon off the bench if he's not in the starting lineup. Late in the game, steal some bags, stuff like that. But you heard Mike Early talk earlier this week. He could play any position in the outfield, and he could play some at second base. So if it works out where TK stays hot at the plate, they can get creative the way they find in ways to stay in the lineup. And I think that's exciting, and the versatility is great to have.
TK's taken a lot of the headlines, deservedly so, through the first weekend. Don't sleep on Sawyer Farr. This was a kid that they were adamant they had to get in the lineup. He had 2 at-bats. He struck out twice, one on a ball that was in the other batter's box. It's clearly a ball, like not a strike. You should never swing at it. But that kid's a real player too. Real player. And you even heard Coach Early mention a guy like Nathan Tobin this week because of his speed, how you could get him into games late to run bases. Just gives them another option. So there's still some kind of hidden gems on this roster that we don't know about yet.
And the super utility ability of Yamal George, right? He can play the outfield, he can play the infield, and he can catch.
Yeah.
A lot of pieces.
Maria?
From the Brad Cave on YouTube, Baseball Bunch, Early is going with 3 lefties for this weekend series. Do you think we will see a righty getting the starting role on the weekend in the future? If so, who do you have in mind?
Not if the 3 of them pitched like they did this weekend.
Yeah,
right?
the worst one was Lampkin, right? And you think Lampkin will bounce back?
A lot of weak contact, too, to give up those runs.
Yeah, and he was ahead of a lot of hitters.
Yeah.
He gave a lot of 2-strike hits. But if there was going to be a right-hander, I think Weston Moss is the safest bet to go in there. But right now, if you ask Michael Early and Jason Kelly, would you be okay if Ryan Prager, Justin Lampkin, and Miles Patton were your weekend guys all year? I think they'd sign off on that right now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right now. Because
that means they're meeting expectations, they're having success, and people haven't adjusted to them. It's exactly right. It's a great spot. And, this weekend is such a strange weather situation. Cal Poly had a good first game. They were really bad on the weekend, the second and third game against UCLA. I think they gave up 34 runs in those 2 games. So,
holy smokes!
I mean, you want to go out. They're going to have to make an adjustment. What's their pitching staff going to do that they didn't do last weekend against UCLA? I don't want the weather to affect, the fact that you can go out and maybe get their weekend starters and have, an opportunity with some time to rotate some guys in. But it's going to be pretty brutal out there.
Well, I do have a pretty good inkling that if you have long offensive innings, it will affect the decisions made on who goes out there to the mound the next inning because of the weather. Like, you're not going to let Ryan Prager, if he gets lathered up and gets to 65, 70, 75 pitches, then A&M scores 6 runs in an inning, he's done.
Right.
You're not going to let him sit in that cold weather and try to get hot again. It's just not worth it. So you're right, Scotty. Like, so whatever happens offensively because of the weather could impact the pitching decisions that are made.
Also, keep in mind they're still trying to make up for the innings they've lost, trying to get more guys in the game.
Yeah.
Maria, we got a text from Tony in Lexington.
Yes, he says, did we hear anything about the relief pitchers, or is it too early to tell?
Did we learn?
Not too early to make any definitive statements. I think that's the party line on all things A&M baseball related after one weekend. Clayton Freshcorn looked really good as the closer. He's going to be a high leverage arm, but that's not to say that Weston Moss is going to be able to impact games on the weekend. I think that's where his value is rather than being a right-handed starter, at least right now. Things could change. And it's still too early to make any definitive decisions about guys like Wilson and Baker and Smith, and we haven't seen Berceau. So, no, I don't think we've learned anything, but we're getting there, potentially.
One of the things I found was I don't know if interesting is the right word, but when we were talking to Early yesterday and I asked him about Blake Binderup, and he's like, I want that kid with me if we're in a dark alley. All the things about
he's speaking your language, right?
Yeah,
he's trying to get into fights.
Oh, yeah.
No, I wasn't saying that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
Well, Coach Early, I think he'd be a good guy to have in your corner in a scrap too. But I'm glad you brought up Blake's name, and it's to the point of the texture. I don't know why, especially after last year. I don't know why, and football should have taught us this in the inverse. Why do you have to make decisions right now on what something is? And for whatever reason, there are certain very vocal, I think it's a very vocal minority within the fan base that Blake Binderup is their boogeyman. They're trying to move stuff around to take Blake Binderup out of the lineup right now, when every time Coach Early comes on this show, he comes out in full favor of Blake, glowing remarks about Blake, his potential, how he's played, how he's practiced, how he is with his teammates, his importance in the locker room and dugout. Yet, you've seen him play 3 games.
22 innings in 3 games.
Less than that, too, because he was subbed out. And you want to make decisions on the guy when the head baseball coach is talking about him every week with what he means to this team and how good he can be. And, oh, by the way, he was pretty stinking good in the batter's box over the weekend.
You were trying to take a guy out of the lineup who's hitting 429 and has an OPS near 150.
And to what?
Because he dropped the ball at first base. And I get it. He's got to catch it. But that's like they see that, and these people, they've come into the year saying, we've got bullpen questions. We have to question it. If it's bad, we have to question it early. And then we don't trust what's happening at first base or catcher.
And I think that, the limited time that we've seen them this spring, that's even more than that, the coaches see everything. They see every swing in the cage. Everything is analyzed video-wise. They're watching for anything to make you better and to make sure you don't fall into something where you're going to move yourself out of the lineup. It is very interesting, and it happens every year. There's always a boogeyman.
There are people trying to put Gavin Cash back over there. We even saw a couple of posters, Richard, wanting to put Hayden Schott at first base. That guy's never played first base in his life. He's got one leg.
But he's better.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
The excitement is TK, and we understand that. But that's why they're across the street trying to figure out how
there's 50 to 60 more of these things before we can really, at least probably 25 or 30 before we really learn anything.
Right. Let's hit a break. We'll do one final segment with the baseball bunch before Billy gets here. Right now, we're talking Heritage Films, Chance McClain's company. They make documentary films. The website's easy, yourheritagefilm.com. When you are, you just want to honor your family. You want to honor your family last name, your family business, your family ranch. You want to honor your father, your grandfather, or just tell a great story. reach out to Chance and let his team do a 2-hour documentary on the situation. If it's your family business, he'll tell that story. If it's a group of buddies that get together and they play basketball on the weekends, play golf, they do tailgating together, you want to tell that story, let Chance and his team do it. Preserve that story, keep it for the next generation and the generation after that. Again, the website, yourheritagefilm.com. Yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. And we're back. Baseball Bunch on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. All right, guys, let's focus in on someone to watch for this weekend. Brauninger, who's somebody you have your eyes on?
I'm going to say Wyatt Hensler. I think he was okay in the first weekend. Just like, even though he's an old guy, playing in front of that crowd and all he's accomplished in his career, it's still different, right? Like, he still wanted to do so well. And he had a couple of rockets. He had a rocket on Friday night. But I thought there was some at-bats where he swung at some bad pitches, got himself in some bad spots. He is a fantastic player. Fantastic player. And I think over the course of the season, we're going to see that. And I think he starts going in the right direction this weekend.
Richard?
I know it's not a singular guy, but I'll go with the bullpen, right? I want to see someone step up. I want to see a couple of guys step up. I want to see some clean innings out of these guys and give us some reason for optimism so that the vocal minority can be quiet for a little bit moving into next week's trip to Houston?
Justin Lampkin. I think that, a left-hander, you're not going to have anybody turn around. I thought that Brauninger had a great point on the broadcast the other day. If you're going to hit home runs, your left-handed guys, they're going to hit it at the light pole, and it's going to pull foul. You get a lefty in there, you're going to have a predominantly right lineup. Also, another thing I want to watch for this week is infield defense. Is Cal Poly going to play the typical California bunt game, which gets real hard on a cold day to pick up that ball and throw it accurately? It's crazy that you get a north wind that you think would affect offense, and it plays into the hands of a team that wants to play some small ball. That'll be something I'm looking at this weekend.
Well, the defensive questions, and again, the defense was not good enough by any metric, by any standard. I actually think the error line over the course of last weekend, what the actual error count was on the scoreboard, was a little bit flattering to Texas A&M. Yep. I thought they played worse defense than what the scoreboard said. And Mike Early didn't run from that. He said, it's my fault. I got to prepare them. And that was not good enough. But the funny thing is most of their mishaps came on balls in the air.
Yeah.
And that's their home ballpark. The wind does crazy stuff. The weather was awful. None of it's excuses. I think Caden Kent said that too. These are not excuses. This is what happened, but we have to make those plays. The balls have to be caught. So I am looking for one area of improvement, just to be a little bit cleaner with leather.
To Scotty's point about small ball, Mike Early and company, they're saying that this isn't your prototypical West Coast team. They don't do a ton of that, the bunts and running and stuff like that. But the weather conditions probably play into that on both sides, right? Because it's going to be so cold. We don't know which direction the wind's going to blow on each day. So you could see a little bit more of that from A&M, a little bit more managing the ball game from Michael Early.
I also think that Tuesday against Texas State going to be a big challenge, but that will be the first game, I think, where they've played in like normal weather circumstances. And then you go into next weekend at Houston, and you're going to play in an indoor stadium. You're going to have normal weather. It's going to be as clean of a environment, atmosphere as you can play in. So if the defense is bad again this weekend, it's certainly something to highlight, but I'm not ready to say like this club struggles on defense even after 6 games.
Yeah, and I think that, when your schedule continues to ramp up until you play in the best league in the country, next week's games are all important. Rice playing better baseball than they did, the year before. So I think that, you're gonna see your schedule kind of ramp up, and that's always a good thing before you go into SEC play. But Cal Poly, they had one good game against UCLA. The other 2 were brutal. They have the questions that you're glad A&M doesn't have, and it'll be interesting to see how they get up off the mat.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate you. When we come back on TexAgs Live, Billy Liucci for the next hour. We've got some baseball to talk, basketball to talk, football to talk, a lot of stuff to get into. It's TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. And we are back on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Basketball this weekend, obviously, it's going to be I'm hoping for a raucous crowd. Nick, I know you were working a little bit during the game on Saturday last week when it was at 11 a.m. But this team deserves it, and they need it, even if it's 11 a.m. Let's get people there. Let's get it.
Well, I think if that, the LSU football, obviously it's football, a little bit different, right? But if the LSU blackout is any sign of what to expect from the 12th man when it comes to blackouts, just because it's something different, it's something fun, like they're going to show up. Especially a almost top 5 matchup, top 10 matchup, second one ever, right? Second one this season. So I think they'll be there. And again, A&M's done very well against Tennessee when they've come to Reed Arena.
So I don't know if you got this, but I almost got confused listening to the Tennessee insider Josh Ward when he was breaking down Tennessee, because a lot of the things he was saying, I'm like, wait, is he talking about A&M or Tennessee? Because some of the same complaints about, the inability to score at times. Now, I think A&M's been good on the road. Tennessee has struggled a little bit on the road. The way they talk about Rick Barnes and yes, we know he's great, but we need to see more success in the postseason, right? And a lot of those things, I'm like, man, that sounds very similar. And then you think about the way they scored, and they got a dominant guard, and they got a transfer who's doing big things for them. A&M, dominant guard, and Wade Taylor.
Both dominant guards have been with the school for a pretty long time.
Absolutely. Yeah, Zakai Ziegler he sets the table. I think Wade is more of a scorer than Zakai, but then they've got Chazalier on their team, and so there's a lot of similarities. Hopefully, the difference, if things go the way they have gone for both programs, hopefully the difference is Reed Arena, right? You get them at home. A&M's been a tough out at home. What are they, 15-1 at home, Nick? Am I right on that record?
Yeah, there's the number, 12-1. 12-1 at home.
Excuse me, 12-1 at home. So look what they've done against Quad 1 and Quad 2 teams, 14-6. So look, I look at the right side of those graphics. Net ranking for Tennessee, 5th. KenPom, 5th. BPI, 4th. Record versus Quad 1, Quad 2, 11-4. Road record, 4-4. I look at that and I'm like, when it comes to a team like A&M and also a team like Tennessee, take off your gloves. Who's going to come bring it, right? And A&M typically will outwork the opponent. And even when they don't, they will outwork you. Like that's just in their DNA. Hopefully, though, the metric that is different in this one than we saw against Mississippi State, because I think Mississippi State was able to match the physicality. Some of it was because Farrell was in foul trouble, but is the ability to get to the line. Tennessee does not foul a lot. A&M has got to find a way to put Tennessee in a vulnerable position.
Yeah, and you got to help me remember here, but how many times has that happened this season where a team has matched A&M's physicality? Because I don't think it's happened too often, right?
No, I'm trying to think. Like the Oregon game got away from you. Kentucky, they were just shooting threes. Alabama was pretty physical and pretty fast, and they were just too athletic. That's it for the most part. But you're
without Wade in that Bama game, right?
Yeah.
That's something to chalk that up to. So, I guess you're right. The Mississippi State game, one of the first times that happened this season. So, again, it's going to be a rock fight just because these two teams are so good defensively. But
I think South Carolina did a really good job of playing A&M's brand of basketball when the Ags played them. And A&M came away victorious on the road. But that's what South Carolina does, right? They muddy the waters against teams. Georgia, no, not as much. I think it's. And by the way, I don't know if Luke's around you, but I'm pretty sure the loss to Mississippi State was the first time A&M has lost when they're fully healthy. Am I right about that? Maybe it was the Texas game.
Let me ask him.
Because I feel like when they're fully healthy, they don't lose. And I'm pretty sure if it wasn't the Mississippi State game, maybe it was the Texas game.
It was against Texas, yeah. It was Texas. The first time they lost fully healthy.
And that game was more of a collapse at the end, as opposed to what we saw against Mississippi State, which was a collapse that started at the end of the first half that unfortunately just continued, and A&M hovered around for a little bit. All right, let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center as we wait for Billy. We got some SEC news and notes to get into. Maria Griglione. Maria?
Yes. So, number 4, Alabama basketball was upset by number 15, Missouri last night by a score of 110-98, led by Mark Mitchell, scoring 31 points. This is the second game that Alabama has lost in a row since they lost to Auburn last Saturday.
All right, let's go to the, but thank you very much for that. That kind of shakes up the SEC standings a bit. We go to the Buppy's Catering Hotline. Billy Liucci, executive editor and co-owner of TexAgs, with us. Billy, good morning. No, we're just talking a little basketball this morning. What's up with you?
Seattle. Some of those are pretty, Milwaukee, Cleveland, they're pretty far trips. So playing 4 in 4 days and then having to travel and go do that, that's rough. Except, here's the thing, that's assuming you're going to make it to the final. This is going to be the hardest final to reach in this conference history for everyone. So it probably won't matter whether you get that first round bye or not. I don't think that first game either way is going to affect A&M's seed line. I think what's going to affect their seed line is what happens between now and the finish. So Missouri winning and beating Alabama, there are a couple of, well, one positive and one interesting thing. The positive is you're still the only team to beat Mizzou at Mizzou. And that includes Kansas. That includes, Alabama now. Missouri's been really, really good at home. And I guess they also, by the way, went and won at Florida, which we're all sitting here, and I can tell it's going on. It's running rampant through our office. Everybody's just chalking up that Florida game as a loss, right? Just like everybody chalked up Mississippi State. And I see a lot of the fans did that before the game. And I thought that was going to be a really tough game. We also thought the same thing when they went to Missouri and they won that game. We've thought that many times before with this collection of players over the last couple of years, and they've gone and surprised and won. So to assume they're going to lose at Florida, then how did Missouri pull it off, the team that you beat? There was also the whole concept of, Texas A&M, the real Aggies were exposed. One game out of 27 or 26 so far this year. That's what we've been saying. That's what we've been saying, David. They could lose a game when they don't score. Well, we've always known that, but they've avoided it, let's just say 9 times out of 10. And it got to them at Mississippi State, which I think was a bad matchup. And if they draw a team like that or U of H in the tournament, I will be particularly nervous because their teams, those are the teams that can match and kind of nullify that huge advantage that Texas A&M has against most opponents, which is that physicality, that rebounding, that low post presence, and almost like a little bit of an intimidation factor because they play with the level of physicality you're not used to. Well, that's not the case with Jan's squads. It's not the case with Kelvin Sampson. That's why under Frank Martin, South Carolina always gave A&M problems. They can match what is A&M's biggest advantage over most teams. So that was a tough matchup. But the way people jumped off and just lost a lot of faith and hope or kind of said, we told you so, didn't tell us crap. You didn't tell anyone that. We've all known that is a deficiency that will from time to time bite A&M. And, yeah, they run in the wrong team or they get particularly cold. That all we've said, and we from this standpoint we agree, when this run does come to an end, whether it's early or whether it's in San Antonio, it would probably be because of one of these brutally cold offensive stretches. In this case, it was a game, or one of these, or maybe because of free throws, which I do think they've improved on of late. But Bama went up there and got their asses kicked. And I saw someone have the audacity to say, well, Missouri scored 59 points in a half. We just scored 54 in a game. And I'm going, we're like, okay, that's also the same Missouri team that A&M held to 64 in an entire game in that same gym, in front of that same crowd. They pumped in 110 against the number 2 team in the country. Styles make fight. A&M ran into a tough matchup there with Mississippi State. It's the same reason U of H saw A&M in their bracket and had Final Four hopes and goes, damn it, that is the toughest thing in our path. And had their best player not got hurt early against Duke, it would have actually been the truth. They would have beaten Duke. They would have beaten NC State. They'd have gone to the Final Four, and the toughest thing in their path would have been A&M, and they knew that the minute the bracket got released. So, look, this is another team Saturday that can play defense like the Aggies. So this is going to be another one of those tests. This is a tough physical week for A&M, and we all said if they could go 1-1, I think they're big winners this week. So we'll see. It's obviously not going to be easy. Tennessee they've crushed some good teams this year. They've also lost to and have been on the ropes against some teams that aren't as good as A&M. So anything can happen tomorrow.
Billy, I understand you're close, so why don't we hit a break here? We'll come back. We can continue with basketball, baseball, and get some football thoughts on the other side. All right. That's how they do it in the movies. In the movies, have you noticed, like, Nick, I'm sure you've seen this. In movies, people don't say bye. They just hang up. Like, I'll meet you at the store. Click. Like, I like when people say bye.
What time? Where are you going to be in there? Like, what are we doing? Eating lunch?
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, but at what time? Or goodbye. Good talking. Talk to you later. I'm just going to start ending segments like that. I'm just going to look into the camera. But before that.
Carson would love you for that, by the way.
Carson, you better be ready. Just kidding, Carson. I'm going to do the spot. Just wanted you to think for a second. Ready? Ready? Just one more time. All right. Costa Vida time. I love Costa Vida. Say hi to Holly when you go to Costa. Seriously, go up there and say, Holly, hello, TexAgs loves you. Yeah, and then she'll say, quesadillas love you back. Because when you get the quesadillas at Costa Vida, you're going to love them. Fresh Mex done the right way. They're an awesome community there at Costa Vida. You can go for breakfast, you can go for lunch, you can go for dinner. All 3 meals done. You can do it. You can go keto style, you can go carnivore style, you can go whatever style you want. You're going to get Fresh Mex done the right way where every ingredient does matter. And when you go there for the mornings, get yourself a breakfast taco. Who doesn't love a nice breakfast taco? For lunch, if you want to go a little lighter, like you want a soup or tortilla soup, tortilla soups are fantastic. You want to go for happy hour, get your drink on, you want to get your grub on, you can do it all at Costa Vida, and you can find it in South College Station. They are Aggie owned and operated, 4501 Mills Park Circle in College Station. Again, that's 4501 Mills Park Circle in South College Station. It's Costa Vida. Carson, guess what? 3, 2, 1, break. 2, 1. And now we're on the air.
So,
hi, Billy.
This was a mug I left last week, and I want to transport this into the coffee from the cup into the mug.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them to rinse this out because it was the one I used the other day. Hopefully no one used it. And it came back to me dry on the inside. So I go, well, did anybody rinse it? And then they said yes. And then they dried it out. So then I had to go re-rinse it.
What do they dry it out
because
with?
I was thinking, you dry it out, you just, look, it only fits like this little claw to stick your whole claw hand in there.
Carter's hand's all up in your mug?
Carter clawed it. And I'm like, well, we can't do that. So I had to double rinse. So they're laughing at me. And my coffee has cinnamon in it. And our friend, my girl Bree at Another Broken Egg, put cinnamon in my to-go coffee and risks her life because she's allergic to cinnamon. And every time I'm in there, she risks her life. So shout out Bree.
Shout out to Bree. Did we want to move off basketball, or did you have any more thoughts? Because I look at this Tennessee game, Billy.
We should open with basketball. What the hell?
We did open with basketball. I was just saying, I wanted to make sure you wanted to continue the dialogue. I look at this matchup, and I'm like, it doesn't tell you everything, obviously. If you lose to Tennessee, you're still playing for a lot of great things, obviously, right? But what do you need?
That piece of paper.
Oh, this is one of the papers that I like. How about I give you one of these papers?
No, I want to use that.
Oh, you want to use it? I thought you were going to clean the coffee you spilled on the table.
No, we'll do that.
You can do that at the break.
Okay, so
anywho,
Tennessee.
This Tennessee game, I look at what they've done against Tennessee recently, and there's that level like, okay, I think Buzz has a kind of a formula that works against Rick Barnes, especially at Reed. I look at Tennessee, what they're really good at, and I'm like, but that doesn't seem like it matches up with A&M. But it doesn't matter when A&M brings the physicality, and they always bring physicality. But when they are the enforcers, I think it neutralizes what other teams does well.
Yeah, I think so too, and they've done a good job of that, like you said, against Tennessee at home. Look, this is I think rankings-wise, is this as big a game we've seen at Reed Arena since when? Luke, look that up. 7 versus 6. I'm just trying to think, what was A&M ranked? What were the Aggies ranked when they beat number 1 Alabama? That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
They weren't ranked that high. Certainly, obviously not number 7. You might have to go back to maybe one of these years where A&M was ranked really high and played Kansas.
Yeah, I was going to say it was Big 12 days.
But I think, I would bet potentially maybe 06, 07, almost 20 years ago against LSU or UCLA early in that season. They went to LSU, Big Baby Davis. I think that was LSU's Final Four team. They got beat at LSU. That was AC Law and Georgia. That was the Sweet 16 year. And then a couple games later, they went out, or maybe even a game later, they went out to UCLA and lost to a very highly ranked UCLA. And I'd say one of those two games, or maybe some random Kansas game.
The Bama game you're talking about, A&M was 24.
Okay, there you
go. A&M was 24, Bama was 2.
Okay, so I think this might be the biggest home game at Reed Arena in terms of rankings in a long, long, long time, like almost 20 years, in terms of where both teams are. Look, Tennessee is tough. There's been times this year where I've thought, well, Tennessee's kind of slumping. Tennessee's slipping, and that's not the team we thought. I think so much of that had to do with how badly Florida smacked them around in their first meeting. Then they came back and beat Florida by 20 without Zakai Ziegler. They humiliated the Gators. So I think the only time that's happened to Florida. And again, another example of you will get it in this league if you're not fully ready to play or if your game takes a step back, particularly away from home. And that happened to Florida in that game. It happened to Alabama last night. Happened to A&M. It happened to Bama at home versus Ole Miss. It happened to Ole Miss at home versus that same Mississippi State team. It's about when you catch teams. Texas beat Kentucky. That was Kentucky without Jackson Robinson and 2 other guards. The reason Kentucky beat A&M in Lexington had was a huge part to do with Jackson Robinson heating up against his old team. So it's so much a matter of when you catch them, when you don't, where you catch them. So with A&M playing at home, there are times this year where I've thought Tennessee has been like, well, maybe they're not that 1 seed. Maybe they're not even a 2. Then you look up and you go, no, they're squarely in the 2, and they're in the mix for a 1. And you just look at their last 5, and they crushed Florida. They played Missouri. Mizzou should have beaten them. Okay, I was actually driving to New Orleans that night. That was a Wednesday night, I think, 2 weeks ago. They were up. Missouri couldn't hit free throws out of nowhere. They could not hit free throws, or they'd have beaten Tennessee. That was an 85-81 final. Crushed OU like everybody seems to be doing now. Does Porter Moser make it through this season in Norman? And then, they got beat pretty handily by Kentucky. Kentucky controlled that game. Again, that was at Rupp. The score was only 9 points. Kentucky was in control. They were the better team, it felt like, in that game. And then they beat Vandy by 5. And lost to Vandy earlier in the year. So Tennessee's beatable, but they're also – they could still be the second best team in the SEC. I know right now Florida's ahead of them. With what I saw from Bama the other night, Tennessee could still be the second best team in the SEC. And they're certainly a top 5, but they could be as high as number 2. Well coached under Rick Barnes.
They think they can still be a 1 seed.
They can. They absolutely can. And look at these. Chaz Lanier, I heard you guys talking about him earlier. He's an absolute beast. But listen to these names. And I've been watching, Milicic is freaking good. Yeah. When he gets going, you cannot let that guy get going. But when I look like names like Meshack and Ziegler, I feel like they've been around forever.
Yep.
I mean, how many times have these guys come and played at this might be like some of their third time to come to Reed Arena. So,
I mean, they are a veteran team. Look at that they're starting 5.
Very veteran.
4 seniors, 1 junior.
Well, look at A&M.
Yep.
It's 4 seniors, 1 junior. I mean, this is a fun college basketball game. It is not one that A&M needs to win, but if you're thinking of claiming a 2 seed in this tournament, then you probably do.
You do need to win this.
Well, look, here's one thing I'm going to push back on, though, because I hear y'all talking about it, and I heard somebody trying to tell me the other day that was a bad loss. It's like a quad 1 loss on the road. Okay? And saying, well, that kind of kills your hope. And I've heard that. And I'm not saying you did, but I've heard somebody at this desk try to say that kills your hopes. My ass, it does. It might. Look, from what I saw the other day, I don't expect the Aggies to go on this heater where they win 2 out of 3 against Tennessee, Auburn, and Florida, and then go beat LSU and Vandy. That's not outlandish out of the question that they win 2 games at home against great teams. Then they are going to be a 2 seed.
Yeah.
Or win 1 and go win at Florida. And look, I'm the person that'll sit here and tell you they could lose at home to Vandy. Vandy's good. If they have one of those games where it goes, we're up for Auburn, we're up for Tennessee, we're down for Vandy, you could get beat. I get that. But to act like Mississippi State is something you can't recover from, or if they lose to Tennessee, that you can't beat Auburn and go win at Florida like Missouri did, it's just not true. Like, this team is capable of doing those things.
And follow me here. I know this is not how sports work all the time, but the fact that game got such away from them, to me, might be a good thing, taking on Tennessee. It's never a good thing to lose.
Yeah, you don't
never
want it.
Right. But what I'm saying is, you lose a close game, hey, guys, we're just a couple plays away.
Yeah.
They were a couple plays away playing their worst until the last few minutes of that game.
Yeah. They should be pretty motivated because that was not that's the worst
performance of the year, right?
I think it was their worst performance of the year. And I'll be real honest with you, and I don't know if I told you this or somebody that works here, but I felt normally you play such a bad first half and you're up 1, you feel good. Hey, we're up 1 on the road and we play. That's normally my thought process. but I was watching the way they were playing.
Yes.
And no one was playing well. And everything they were trying to do offensively was just getting gobbled up. And there were way too many easy passes for dunks and layups after penetration. They missed a ton of not a ton, but several open threes that could have busted over. I knew A&M was up 1, and normally the Aggies can be down a few at halftime, and I feel all right about it. For whatever reason, being up 1 and playing that poorly didn't give me that kind of hope it normally does. Like, man, now just play a better second. Because I could tell they were not playing good basketball that night.
And to go along with that thought, Billy, they were not playing well. They were up 1, and you got points from CJ, and it just didn't seem he didn't play much in the second half.
Well, it's not sustainable if he's not playing.
Well, that and it just we haven't seen that kind of offensive output from him.
Well, they had their chance there at the end of the half. It felt like in those last 4 minutes, it felt like they were getting a little bit of control, getting into a little bit of rhythm.
Yeah.
And they let it get away from them because they just didn't play good basketball. So I think there's some truth to that. This team has played. You can say they played a bad half against this team and that team. In most games, it feels like there is one. But they've been playing really good basketball since that Texas loss. And for 2/3 of that game or 3/4 of that game, they played really good basketball there as well. I mean, it's just going to go in ups and downs throughout the course of the game because of their scoring. But they've been playing outstanding basketball. You know how I can tell? All the W's.
Yeah.
WWW. But they did not play well in Starkville. And they did not play up to their standard. And that's not their style, really, to come in there. And like Buzz is not going to come on and say that. Say, hey, we really sucked against Mississippi State. It's just not what he does. I don't know. I think he just prefers to. I think he probably tells them that.
Yeah.
It's just what he does. He doesn't come on and say, well, he might. If they win Saturday, he might come back and go, yeah, we had it off. But he doesn't even seem to like to do that. But the reality is, they know they played poorly in that basketball game, and they're going to do everything they can to fix it. I think the motivation should be through the roof going into this one. It would have been anyway. But, yeah, man, when you don't play like you're capable of playing, I do think there's some added motivation coming in. So, yeah, this should be a team that's fired the hell up. Again, I think they would have been even if they'd beat Mississippi State. But I want to see them play better, win or lose. And even down this stretch, like you're going to play 3 type teams that you're probably going to meet in that second weekend if you're good enough to get there. This is the level of teams you're going to meet. Like in a Sweet 16, obviously if you move beyond that, but in a Sweet 16, like you're going to meet a team that's your peer or better.
Yeah.
So let's see how they do in these 3. Now, let's see how they do against Vandy at home because Mississippi State, Arkansas, Georgia to a lesser degree, Mizzou, those last 4 games they've played have been against caliber teams that I think they'll probably see in like a second round game.
Yeah.
Against a 5 or a 6 seed, depending on where you're at. Even a 7 if you're a 2. Those are the caliber of basketball teams that you're going to have to beat. And all of those games, 3 of the 4 you won were very hard-earned. You had to fight for them. So you're getting a feel for, like, A&M's kind of, I think, in that middle where their teams below them are going to, be tough wins in this tournament. Teams ahead of them, the Aggies are going to have to ride. And that makes sense for everybody, but I think you know what I'm saying, where A&M, they're not what I would call an elite team, like in that top 5. And then, but they're good enough to beat them. But they're also, because they're not elite, they're susceptible on a bad night. There's a whole group of teams just waiting for that matchup too to say, okay, we can handle A&M. So. Again, I still think this team gets into that second weekend, and then where they go from there, it's going to depend on, and I think these 3 games are going to be telling, like, how do you play against the teams that are perceived as elite?
All right, Milliken Reserve Time, farm to table community in College Station. They got homes, they got trails, they got farms, they have wide open spaces. A lot of great events happening at Milliken Reserve. You got Volunteer at the Farm tomorrow, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Gardening 101, Integrated Pest Management, all right, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on the February 25th. You've got Sunrise Coffee on the 27th. They're an awesome community that wants you to know that they're creating a sanctuary for family, for nature, and for community. They have an awesome network of trails throughout a wooded landscape, and they want to make sure that you go there for hiking, biking, canoeing, kayaking, equestrian trails, all the great activities that they have at Milliken Reserve. The website is millikenreserve.com. That website again, millikenreserve.com. I would love, we're on the air, by the way. I would love to one day go through what shows up on your feed and what shows up on my feed. YouTube, Insta, whatever.
At one point, something started. Well, because I was showing Nuño this like dance competition where this dude is like pretty incredible.
I mean, it's good. The timing of it. Look, you've got.
I'll have like. What do you got?
We got Peter Attia, who's a doctor. We've got jiu-jitsu. We've got Dr. Mike Israetel, your favorite, the fitness doctor. Dr. Mark Hyman, probiotics. Sean Ryan, who does a great podcast. I'm sure you watch Sean Ryan. PBD. That's mine.
So if you really want to see like what I send Seth is like my bookmark library.
Yep.
I've got. This would be.
Okay, had I not seen it, I would have thought something else was going on.
Various monkey sounds around the world. I sent that to Seth this morning, actually. You've got Fainting Goats dancing to Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. You've got Indian head massage. You've got the original practice scene of the Karate Kid final fight.
Yeah.
Like the original footage of them kind of rehearsing that scene.
I'd be interested in that.
That was cool. I've got Marvin Hagler versus Tommy Hearns.
Heck yeah, what a fight.
I've got some guy singing The Sound of Silence on The Voice. This really deep voice. I've got a video of 1991 video junior high in 1991, which would be Seth's era in junior high. And then I've got like this guy.
What are you going to sing for us?
Like this dude.
I was waiting over.
Is this The Voice?
But
you know this?
I'll go out because it's Friday night.
So you never know what's on my timeline.
It's all over the place.
So my algorithm, and what's really made it weird is one time I accidentally clicked on one of these like AI generated like creatures running through like a grocery store. And now it's just gotten.
Now it's all over the place.
And they're the weirdest things. Like it creeps you out, and all I do is send it to Bronny, Seth, and Steve on a group chat. So there you go.
Do you think I would respond if you sent that to me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, how would I respond?
You would just be like, "What is that?"
Why are you sending me
You
this?
would think it was real.
Yeah. Cal Poly.
Yep.
They're a real program, Billy. They're here.
A&M's a real program. Playing at home, and
Did you hear the baseball bunch when I feel like Bronny was he's sick? I don't know if I'm phrasing it correctly. Nick, maybe you can help me phrase it. He's like, it's one weekend. People are overreacting to a weekend, and that is baseball.
Yep. But he's also right. But he's the biggest overreactor there is. He's just going against. I just think it's not like some of these things you see in the first weekend will be true for the year of any baseball team. But like I watched one weekend of baseball and I see some jackasses in the national level that have Texas basically penciled in as the national champs. It seems like they've got pitchers. You know, they've seen these pitchers one time; they're unstoppable, and then you got the arm farm over there, and you know they're hitting home runs. Like Ole Miss might be terrible this season; it might be awful. You know, I don't know what Oklahoma State is. They're usually pretty good. I watched Oklahoma State make a bunch of errors that allowed that game, that was particularly that one inning, to get where it got. It is like let's tap brakes always. And I'll be saying the same thing. Last year, if A&M rolled through a team, the Aggies were getting that treatment early on when they were not beating good teams. Even up at that tournament they played in, they played USC and Arizona State, which I don't think either one of them made the postseason. Turns out you would have been right if you said this looks like a machine. Some things you observe early on in a season in any sport might be right, and you can say, I told you so. But it's I really don't think that you were indicated definitively in that first weekend. It's just not enough when even with the weather the way it is, playing the pressure. I think that lineup, like I was worried about that first game just because of what the Aggies were probably putting on themselves mentally. You don't know what inserting Sorrell in the lineup does to all the other guys hitting. You don't know what Sorrell does to the defense. You don't know what Terrence Keel playing the way he did does in terms of what they're going to do when Sorrell comes back. There's all kinds of stuff going on here right now. A couple guys are playing banged up. They're going to be fine, but they're playing banged up early. The pitching and the defense, I know people were making a big deal of, and yeah, I think they had some real lapses on defense. A couple, like with that one inning, and then Sunday you're going, but like let the year, not the year, like let more than a weekend play out. I really think it was opening weekend. You had more faces out there than I think, going into the season you were kind of expecting. You had a couple anyway. You had a bunch of transfers you're excited about that were wearing maroon and white for the first time. It was Coach Early's first series as a coach, particularly that first game Friday night. You don't think they were pressing?
Yeah.
And against a good pitcher. Thank God for Prager that night because, that and they took Prager out sooner than they would have, and then a guy comes in and gives up a couple runs. It was. I don't think that weekend is going to be indicative of this team moving forward. I'm not saying that defense won't be a concern. It might be. I'm not saying, and it might not be. I'm not saying that there's some real questions in the bullpen because there was going to be like if they came out and mowed down Elon, what did we
still wouldn't know.
Like I think there are going to be questions when you lose Cortez and Aschenbeck just right off the rip. And we knew that. And these guys have to pitch and they have to, I would love to our bullpen was returning Cortez and Aschenbeck this year. Well, guess what? You know what they got in Prager and Lampkin. And damn, Sunday starter looked pretty damn good too. And I know Lampkin didn't have his best outing, but we know what Lampkin's best looks like. So, yeah, you don't have that in the bullpen this year, but you do have that on the front end of your rotation. Yep. So, look, they're number one, but there's probably about a half dozen teams that probably feel like their coaches feel like they might have the best team in the country or a chance to win the national title this year. So it's not like, would you feel differently about this team if they were ranked number 5 or 6 and played like that? Or are you just saying, man, they don't look like the number one team yet? Who did? Who looked like number one in weekend one?
I look at baseball with I need time. That's basketball. I feel like you need time in basketball too, because like Buzz has proven that over time his teams play differently as the year rolled. But baseball's one. Let me see.
Well,
right?
You didn't get any questions answered. That would be a fair way to say, like, man, I was wondering about defense. I was wondering about particular guys. I was wondering about the bullpen, and I didn't get the answers I wanted in weekend one. I mean, and if anything, Elon did raise your level of concern. I would say again, tap the brakes. Because if they end up being bad at that thing, you can say, oh, we saw it in weekend one, but that guarantees nothing, just like success would. But I do find it interesting, like the concern outweighs like, what does it mean if Terrence Keel is one of the better freshmen in the league this year? What is it? How does that play into the team? Binderup misplayed, dropped a pop-up, misplayed one, and everybody's wondering about first base. They forget how he was at the plate this weekend. Yeah. That's a real positive, and it's like people are choosing not to talk about that. So let's let this thing play out a little bit. I'd love to see them play, like, say, cleaner baseball this weekend against Cal Poly. I hope they can get – I think they will. I hope they can get 3 games in. Obviously, 4 o'clock today, so people don't forget. And I'm talking to myself here. But I'm actually excited about the 4 o'clock game. Get out there, watch a little Friday afternoon baseball. Yeah. Hopefully get in the weekend on a good note.
As a reminder, the final segment of the program is coming up at 10:50, but right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150 will hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggieland since 1984 with your favorite pizza and, of course, those world-famous pepperoni rolls. Reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com, and your favorites are on their way. Final segment of the program, TexAgs Live. May go a little bit long. Billy's here. We sometimes do that on the final segment. SEC scheduling expansion, Billy. We could see a 9-game season that we've talked about on and off for the last few years, seeming more like a reality. And then that yearly matchup with the Big Ten seeming also more like a reality.
I have talked to some people behind the scenes. Do you feel like there's some momentum there? Like finally. that wasn't there with certain coaches and athletic directors.
I think Saban was one of the ones who was against it, right?
He was very against it.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. Like, I'm all for it if it comes with, because it just makes scheduling so much, I think, so much easier, and it fits what this league should be. There's so many amazing venues and tough places to play and cool places to see and fan bases to play in front of. And I mean, I talked to more Georgia people whether it be on social media or in person, like literally Super Bowl weekend, talking to a Georgia fan, a couple of Georgia fans, and one of them goes, yeah, we've never gotten to play at Kyle Field. Yeah, A&M's played Georgia once in 13 years. Yeah. It's ridiculous. I don't care about going and playing at, is it still Kroger Field at Kentucky? I don't care about playing football in Lexington, but they've never played there. Kentucky's come here once. Florida's been here how many times? 4? 3? This year will be 4. And Georgia none and Kentucky 1. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's so 9 would be so easy to do that 6, 3 constant, and you're playing everyone in the league every 4 years. Every 4 years you're playing every team, right? Every 4 years you're playing every team at home and away. And so every kid that comes through and plays college football through their duration is going to see every place in the SEC, and they're going to play every team twice, and they're going to get to host every team. And you have your natural rivals. For A&M, I love the idea of it being Texas, LSU. I don't care who the third one is. I like the idea of it being a Mississippi State from the standpoint of they're not typically going to be upper echelon, whereas LSU and Texas probably are. It will keep Texas from getting a schedule like they did this year. Also keep A&M and everyone else from getting it. Like we like that A&M had a playable schedule this year, and they messed it up in November, unfortunately. But we like that. But nobody needs to have that. Now comes the next question. What happens, by the way, if you want to be one of the dumber fans on social media in my mentions and you're wearing burnt orange, comment about A&M playing Georgia once since they've been in the SEC. We've played them twice in 1 year. Yeah, Texas A&M also played Alabama and LSU every single year. Not to mention who else they played, not to mention playing the rest of the West versus the East. Don't start with me. That sounds really dumb. A lot of things you could say, that's not one of them. As far as the 9th game goes, as long as it ties in to this concept of the SEC and Big Ten being guaranteed 4, I like that.
You like the 4 guaranteed spots?
I do. And I heard y'all yesterday, and I heard Olin, well, if you don't win your games, but it's like your games are not the same as SMU's games. Your games are not the same as some of these, as Boise State's games. They're not the same as Notre Dame's games. So, no, I don't think that's, I think that's are we off the air? Because I want to say bullshit that we are.
Yeah, we're off the air.
You sure?
We're on YouTube.
Okay, that's a bullshit response right there.
Yeah.
That's a thought process that people say. I think it's complete crap because it's already not the same. So you can't say, well, win your games if you want to be there. Beat Kentucky if you're Ole Miss. I get it, except for the fact that these other teams that are making the field would not be 9-3 like Ole Miss was had they played that schedule, or like South Carolina. South Carolina beats A&M, they beat Clemson.
But do you think there should be a point like that your conference forfeits those 4 if teams have more than 3 losses or whatever, more than 2 losses?
No, my ass. You're playing in the toughest league. The reason you will be getting those 4 is because people say these conferences are year in and year out going to have more. I don't know, David. If you think there's going to be a year where there's not 4 SEC teams with less than 4 losses, fine. Implement that, I guess, if you want. But the reality is that still could be way better than an SMU or a Notre Dame or someone or a Big 12 team with 2 losses. Now, here's how I think that works itself out, right? Like, I get that applies more for the Big 10, but the SEC's getting 4. There comes a cutoff where I agree with like Olin, where you don't need to complain. You have no one to blame but yourself. But I don't think it's at 3 when there are teams in other conferences that could have freaking 1 that shouldn't go before a 3-loss SEC team. Like South Carolina towards the end of that year, and I know they lost that crazy bowl game to Illinois without a couple of their very best players, including the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. But like South Carolina would have just absolutely suffocated SMU. They would have maybe sent Ashton Genty into early retirement with that defense and him trying to run it. So, but where I do agree with the thought of if you want to be there, then blame yourself if you're not. On the back end of these leagues, typically, the SEC and the Big Ten, this year the fourth place Big Ten team had what, one loss?
Mm-hmm.
What, Indiana?
Indiana.
Like they were, in our eyes anyway, they were the fourth best. You had Ohio State, Oregon. You had Penn State, you had Oregon, then you had Indiana. But like say it's the SEC and you've got a glut of 3-loss teams. Then if you don't make it and 4 made it, then you have no one else to blame but yourself. It's like, well, then you should have been 10-2. Because then I understand why you can cut it off at 4. But you're not going to go into these 4-loss teams if you in the SEC or the Big Ten, in my opinion.
But this is what happens when you expand the playoffs and you give these other programs a voice. And like I do believe Sankey when he says, "Hey, we are thinking of college football because if we wanted to, we could just go back to the way it was with 4. We'll have 3 of our teams in there and 1 of the Big Ten, and we'll call it a day,
or at least 2."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Henry Coleman will be here in a moment.
The bigger question, yeah, good, and I think Luke's interviewing him, so that'll be a fun watch. Listen, the biggest thing to me is first off, in my opinion, go to 16, do this 4-4 thing between the ACC, the Big 12, and everybody else. They can get 8 others. I mean, come on. That and maybe some years they might get less because the SEC might get 5 at times. So go to 16. Seed them 1 versus 16, 2, 8 versus 9, just like a region in the NCAA tournament. Do that. Cut the little break out. And then my other thing is, if you don't, you're not going to do that this year. But for this year, the one thing I think you have to do is get rid of the seeding or the automatic bye and just seed your playoff teams 1 through 12. You have a committee that you've put together. These people should be sharp enough, informed enough, and competent enough to say, this is the 1 seed, this is the 2 seed, this is the 11 seed, this is the 12 seed. Boise State does not need a bye in this tournament. Who else got it? Arizona State did not need a bye in that tournament. As much as we don't like the Longhorns around here, Texas or Ohio State should have had the bye and not Boise and Arizona State. Arizona State should have had to play Clemson in game 1. Texas should have been sitting at home not playing, and then they should have met the next week. I mean, fix that. You can fix that in the snap of a finger, one decision. That should be fixed by next year. Ultimately, I'd like to see them go to 16 with the 4-4 and let the rest of the country have the other 8, if they even can earn that.
Everybody, we'll see you on Monday. Thanks for watching.